Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 467. We tackle DC Universe Rebirth. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge. I'm joined as always by my returning co-host back from Italy, Jim, the sensei of the whatnot, Seguin, the Duke of the elder statesman of the podcast and world traveler.
How's it going, eh?
Jim, it's great to have you back. Great timing, because now we're heading into summer and rebirth. It's all here. Rebirth. The Rebirth special we're going to be talking about. In our conversation, we also talk about kicking off the episode Superman 52 and Justice League number 50, because both of those lead directly into the Rebirth special. We couldn't help but talk about those. We do kick off with an initial discussion just because we talk about kind of your approach to film and comics, and it leads to a little tangent where we talk a little bit about Batman v Superman. Also on this episode, we do have some listener voicemails. In the listener voicemails, we do chat about Supergirl, the TV show with the crossover with The Flash. We also talk a little bit of Batman v Superman over there as well. So those are the listener voicemails. And we have some listener emails about the Rebirth special that we also share on this episode. So it's a very packed episode. Without further ado, Jim, we are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network, the League of Comic Book Podcasts, and the InfiniteComics.com podcast partnership. Sponsoring this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Jim, DCBService.com, I know you got some stuff that's going on over there.
Come on, you know it. Bundles. Once again, DCBS is continuing their support of this whole DC Universe Rebirth with some great bundles. And they're doing two separate bundles, bundle one, but the neat thing of both bundles, each one 50% off of the titles. We got bundle number one, where you've got your bi-monthlies, your Action Comics, Aquaman, Batman, Detective, Flash, Green Arrow, Superman, Wonder Woman, and the Titans number one. That bundle, 50% off, only $28.31. Bundle number two, you've got Justice League, you've got Hal Jordan, Green Lantern Corps, you've got Batgirl, you've got Nightwing, Hellblazer, Red Hood, the new Superman. That whole bundle, 50% off, only $16.39.
I'm a big fan of InStockTrades.com and the fact that they always have these deals of the week that are 50% off. They've got the Green Lantern New Gods Godhead trade paperback, 50% off, only $12.49. They have Superman Adventures trade paperback volume 2, 50% off, only $9.99. Teen Titans Go, Heroes on Patrol, 50% off, only $6.49. They've got, this is not one of the 50% off, but this is part of the latest releases. Smallville Season 11 Trade Paperback Volume 8, 45% off, only $9.34. No matter what you're looking for, if it's a collected edition, the place you want to go is InStockTrades.com. They're always doing deals of the week. They're always offering specials. It's a great way to find everything at a discount. A lot of times those discounts, it's like almost buying 2 for 1, depending on how cheap the discount is. But it's a great way to, you talked about bundles in the first part, to bundle together some books and get a really amazing discount. I want to thank DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show. Jim, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on today's show. So, if you ever read the books and or watched the TV shows and movies we talk about, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Let's talk some comics. All right, our main discussion point this episode is going to be DC Universe Rebirth. Jeff Johns is the writer. Chapter 1 Lost has art by Gary Frank and Ethan Van Sciver. Brad Anderson and Jason Wright on colors. Chapter 2 Legacy has Gary Frank on art, Brad Anderson on colors. Chapter 3 Love, Ivan Rice on pencils, Joe Prado and Rice on inks with Hi-Fi on colors. Chapter 4 Life, Phil Jimenez and Gary Frank on pencils. Matt Santorelli, Frank are inkers. Gabe Eltieb, Brad Anderson on colors. The epilogue is Gary Frank and Ivan Rice on pencils. Joe and Frank Prado on inks. Brad Anderson and Hi-Fi on colors. Special thanks to Mike Cotton, Brian Cunningham, and Amadeo Turturro. Nick J. Napolitano on letters. Cover by Frank and Anderson. Variant cover by Rice, Prado, and Alex Sinclair. Assistant editor is Andrew Marino. Group editor Eddie Berganza. Superman created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster by special arrangement with the Jerry Siegel family. Apologies for any name butchery on this one. One other thing I do want to make a little disclaimer on. Jim and I have also read Justice League 50 and Superman 52. The reason why, those are both storylines that were the closing of the Darkseid War and this Death of Superman storyline that's been running in the Superman books. The after effects of both events were mentioned in this. Because we've read both, we're going to kind of organically talk about some events in those issues when they're relevant. So I just want to put a mini spoiler warning on this. If you haven't read any of those issues and you intend to, I would read those before listening to this episode, because the events are referenced in the DC Universe Rebirth issue, and I want us to be able to talk about that freely without ruining the experience for anybody else. And they do put a big disclaimer in the beginning of the book about this. So Jim, let's go to impressions first. Talk about an event week, because I grabbed this issue first, and when I was paging through, they tell you immediately in the notes to read Justice League 50 and Superman 52 before this. And so I did. I followed directions. So I was really excited. I read Justice League 50 first, and then I read Superman 52, and then I read this. And this felt like just one, with those storylines converging and then this event going on, this felt like a big event. It felt like something special. And I think a lot of that is due to the fact that we've been hearing so many things about Rebirth, from people loving the idea, from people hating the idea, from, people saying they wanted to jump on board. This is getting them excited again. It's been kind of, it's built for me anticipation. Like I'm like, we're heading into summer. We're getting all this cool stuff coming. I'm really excited about this. I didn't have a chance to go the night before its release, a local comic shop, Comic Heaven, and I want to shout them out. They were doing a midnight sale. And I know they're not the only one. I didn't have a chance to go, and I'm really bummed that I didn't, just because this felt special from cover to cover all the way through. I was geeking out because I've been loving the New 52. I'm a longtime DC fan, though, so the elements that they were bringing back into the universe are things that are really important to me. I can't wait to see where they go next for this, and it's all story-driven. There's nothing that's being dropped for the sake of dropping it. They're organically, storytelling-wise, making changes and bringing back things that are important to us as fans. That's my take on it. I'm geeking out about this. I absolutely loved every moment of this issue. What was did you have a similar experience? Was yours different? What did it look like for you?
Well, yeah. This was one of those holy crud kind of because you and I talked before I actually read anything. You didn't spoil anything. And you're the one who let me know, hey, make sure you pick up Justice League 50, 52, and Rebirth, because my physical issues were actually getting sent to you. So I had to pick up the digital versions ahead of time. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I read them in that order, and every issue I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. It was one of those things that just kept building and building and building to this moment. Then when I started reading Rebirth, you're just sitting there, and I didn't realize just how massive Rebirth actually, the issue, the physical size of it was. But then you just really see what is going on here and what is going to happen. And I don't know. I was going through just a nice plethora of emotions throughout all this, throughout these three issues, with, Superman 52, man, there was parts that just tore me up. When you see the goddess of war crying, you're just like, oh, that's just, oh. There was a couple of moments, man. It got to me, when Bruce lets his guard down, and he gets emotional, you get emotional right along with him, and then going from that into Rebirth with it's with Wally, going through his emotional run that he went throughout Rebirth. I was just like, man, this is some powerful stuff here. They're tugging at some heartstrings to this time, and it's one of those things where you need to have that emotional. And this is, again, I always laugh when I get genuine emotional responses from these comic books, because there are times when you just got to sit back and say, no, Jim, this is just a book. This is just a book. This isn't real life. Your friend didn't just die. You're okay. And you got to take those moments, and you're just like, wow. It's for me has been this roller coaster, and it's just, I'm so thrilled and excited for what's coming up. I've been spending the past couple days just thinking about, well, what about this? Hey, what about this? And then in my read through today, something clicked. And when we get to the part in the issue, I'll tell you what it was that clicked just today. So I don't know which, this may be third or fourth read through I've done on this on Rebirth. It just clicked in on this one. So this is one of those things where reading them through multiple times has had some really great effect. And again, I'm thrilled and excited where we're going here. I was initially worried with the whole Rebirth thing because I'm like, what are they going to do? Who are they getting rid of? And then when the final days of Superman's story started, I was like, no, I don't want to lose him. Then if you realize eventually what's going to happen and how it's going to play out, and you're like, and just, as I said, the way he went, it was a Superman ending. And I was just like, oh man. But now I'm doing Rebirth, like, well, maybe we make some room.
Well, let's actually, seeing as you're talking about the Superman piece, let's talk a little bit more about that for a moment, and then we'll jump back into this, because I think you're already there, and rather than kind of throwing too much into one compressed conversation, let's talk a little bit about that Superman piece, because if there's one thing I think the New 52 has done well is certain relationships, and I think the Superman-Wonder Woman relationship, I think, has been you mentioned the, Goddess of War crying. I thought they concluded their relationship, the kiss between him and her, and how they just got back together and they admitted that they loved each other through this process. I loved that, because honestly, I think the Superman Wonder Woman book has been one of my favorite books that DC's been publishing. I think it's consistently, since its inception, been just a great read. You talk about the fact that this is a character here, like, I gotta remember, this is just a character that I'm reading about. That's the great thing about serialized comic books. You get to know these characters so well when they're well written. And these are why certain titles become people's favorites and certain characters become people's favorites. And why people get so passionate, whether we agree, disagree, or fall somewhere in the middle with each other as far as opinions go, we get passionate about it. I mean, you and I have very passionate debates on this show sometimes about our own impressions about certain stories, whether it's on film, television, or whatever, and really sometimes we'll dig our heels in because of the fact that we care about this stuff when it's well written, and that's part of the serialized nature of comics. It's why certain TV shows have that effect on people too, and they'll get downright angry over choices that are made. In this case, with the New 52 Superman, I was so torn over this because I'm a big fan of the Rebirth concept. I think since Jeff Johns has been doing it, the books that he's been on, that he, starting with Green Lantern when they kicked this concept off, the books that he's been on that he's done this with, when he did it with Flash, it revitalized Flash to the point right now where I'm a huge Wally fan. I'm just as much of a Barry fan now because of the way it's, Barry's been kind of re-elevated again into that, and modernized into that character that and love at the core, but at the same time, he's so likable. And, with having him on television and be that likable guy too, then he made me geek out about Wally being back. Those are important pieces of this, and we'll talk more about that when we get into this book, but it really does say a lot about this type of storytelling when you're mentioning that piece. Like, I care about these characters like they're my friends, and when that happens in those stories, you want your disbelief suspended when you're reading comics. When you feel that way emotionally, it means it has been. That's a home run. This storyline, that 8-parter, that Superman Death of Superman storyline, really was great because it brought back in Supergirl, let us know her status quo, really brought back all of Clark's confidants. We got to see Steel again, and Lana, and Lois, and Jimmy, and see it all put together. I thought the Batman moments were a home run with Alfred. Bruce is not that guy to share his emotions or wear them on his sleeve. He was helping Clark find his cousin, incredibly frustrated that he wasn't able to do what he really wanted to do, and that was focus on saving his friend. That moment where he's sitting behind the console and he slams his, whatever the piece of equipment was sitting there. And, I almost want to look back at that issue just to see what it was. It was such a pivotal moment because the thing I love about Batman is, for as much as he puts on that cold exterior to him, he really is one of the more caring members of the DC universe. People matter to him, and he doesn't wear it on his sleeve. He buries it internally, but when he lets it out, it means more because you get to see, these layers that he puts on the outside are not really who the man is on the inside. He is still that wounded boy who lost his parents and is afraid and learned through self-defense, emotional self-defense, to bury emotions inside him so he can get through things and get things done. But when he unleashes that in that moment, that's Bruce losing control is not something you see very often. And when you see it, it matters more because of it. I thought the writing throughout this Death of Superman storyline, with various people reacting to what's going on, including Superman's own reaction, how he was trying to face meet up with as many people as he could that were close to him and really put them in a place where they were better by the meeting with him, was very Superman in its nature. That part of the storyline just made me, throughout this whole thing, you talked about tugging at the heartstrings, it made me care about the character even more than I already do, because I'm digging the fact that we've got the pre-Flashpoint Superman back. I love him, I love Lois, I love the kid. The whole concept has me. I care just as much about this guy. And I love the fact that they really did a fan service in both situations. Wherever you fall, I think both characters had some great moments. I loved when the pre-Flashpoint Superman flew in and helped save the day. And you saw the two of them have that moment together. Really, really just everything they did. I think they didn't miss a beat. They didn't waste a moment. They made you aware that the whole universe was impacted by this guy's death. It really was incredibly a well-written event. That 8-parter is something I don't think should be lost in this DC Universe Rebirth event. That 8-parter was, to me, like a great build-up to this.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah. It was funny because I did go through the stages of grief with Clark. Because I was sitting there at first, I was like, man, and then I'm going through, maybe they can bring him back somehow. You're looking at just the basically the mound of dust that he turns into. You're like, maybe he can come back from that. Maybe we can figure out a way. I don't know, something.
All we are is dust in the wind.
Exactly, man. Then I started thinking, they could have done, because there's a scene where basically the final moments when Clark explodes, you see this energy bolt go out and it hits Lois and hits Lana, and I'm like, I wonder if a piece of his essence got transferred, kind of like I'm thinking they did the Spock thing where he put his essence in Bones right before he died. Like, maybe we can get him back that way, and do a body transfer or do some type of cloning where we get that Clark back in another body or something. And then all these different ideas I'm running through my head, which they may do, but I know it's just a pipe dream on my part.
Do we know who Superwoman is?
No, we don't. And I'm thinking I was wondering if maybe that energy transfer we saw was part of that Superwoman.
Sure.
I wonder if that's how we get a Superwoman, was because of that explosion. Because you think about it, the guy he was fighting got an energy blast from him and I'm drawing a blank on Ulysses. Thank you.
Yeah.
Because when those two fought, they had that energy blast go out, and that was just a regular person who got affected, and then he thought he became Superman, and yada yada. And so Clark absorbed that energy, and then when he explodes out, maybe that's what causes it. Maybe that's what creates our Superwoman we're going to get. I don't know. It's one of those things where you're sitting there. I saw it, and I went back on second and third read throughs. I'm like, yeah, they're definitely getting hit with something. And I'm like, this can't be a throwaway. It's got to be something. And I think for me, that was the cool thing on all three of these issues, where you see something like that can't be a throwaway. It can't be a throwaway. There's got to be something behind it. There's got to be a reasoning behind it. And I think, again, I'm thinking outside, I'm thinking beyond the pages. I'm thinking, what about this in a year? What about this in 2 years? What about in 5 years? You're thinking down the long term, down the ways in the DC universe. And I think that is something you need. If you're going to call something a rebirth, you need to have that energy. You need to have those moments where you start thinking, okay, what about this? Well, what about that? What about, and like we already saw the introduction of all these other characters, and we started, and especially going through this rebirth issue, you're seeing the groundwork laid for a lot of these new series coming out. So this for me was a solid home run, and I'm very excited and very glad and very sad to see Clark go away, because I really did like that. But again, the legacy of Superman is still that Superman existed, and he will always exist. And maybe he's something else now. I don't know. And it's, again, there's so many things like, what about this? What about that? I'm kind of like the guy, the ADD kid going, wait, what's that? My head, it keeps jumping around on different thought processes on this. It's one of those kind of exciting energy.
The Superman of China thing gets introduced there as well. We get to see the Great 10 again, and I really loved that being introduced because obviously this is a prelude to that new Superman that we're going to get with Rebirth. So far, I'm interested in the concept. I think they did a great job of teasing it, just enough that, like, okay, I want to read that book more now. Because I'm always, when you introduce a new character like that and you're basing it, off of Superman, at first I'm kind of like, oh, I don't know that I want them to do that. Is that a bit much? You're introducing this. Batman just got through doing this, kind of Batman concept where, it was Batman Incorporated and there was Batman all over the place, which I really liked. Don't get me wrong. I'm not dismissing that, but I'm like, are we doing this with Superman now? Until I read the story. It is a great example of how sometimes a concept on paper doesn't sound as good as the actual writing. And that's why I like to try to give things, you and I are kind of wired the same way. Let's give it a chance first. Let's actually read it and see what it's going to go. I got to be honest, this storyline, I don't know if you feel the same way I do, the storyline that they told within Death of Superman, introducing that character concept, has me intrigued. I'm actually interested in that book now.
Oh, God, yeah. Big time. And again, like you, I was the same boat when they said what they were doing. I was like, oh, okay, they're going to find diversity. Okay. And I didn't think that much of it because I was like, oh, okay, yeah, let's give it a try. Let's see what it is, But seeing how they're playing out, seeing what they're doing, making him part, involved or associated, or you can be connected to the Great 10, which I always thought was a really cool concept of a superhero team because they were taking their culture. They look at life differently. Their culture, they're different people. They're not going to have an American mindset, so their heroes won't have the American mindset. The Great 10 need to have specialized for who they are, and I think all the writers who've tackled that have done a really good job of giving us that personalized, that different way of looking at life, and you need to have that if you're going to do a superhero team not based in the U.S. And it's definitely in this story, we really got a good view of that. We got a good taste of it. I'm now actually excited for and looking forward to that character, that title. It's now one of those things where I really want to read it. Before I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll give it a read. But now I'm actually excited for it.
Yeah, and I wasn't thinking Great 10 or any of that kind of connection with that one. So this is a great example of where teasing something a little bit earlier in a book that would be connected with the character concept like Superman was a great move in incorporating into this story. They did just enough. They didn't overdo it. Like I said, a teaser, and I think that was a bang-up job. I really enjoyed that. The whole Death of Superman storyline was really, really well done. I thought introducing his interactions with the pre-Flashpoint Superman and his family, I thought was really great. Kind of converging that book with the events that are going on in Superman. That was really, really important to me. It didn't miss a beat. It really did not miss a beat at all. It just got me really intrigued with things that they've been building to ever since. I kept expecting a swerve at the end where perhaps he wasn't going to die. And like you, I'm kind of like, if they find a way to have him somehow appear post this rebirth, I'm thrilled with that. I don't really care either way. I really love the ending of the story. It's not going to diminish that in any way, shape, or form for me. I liked how Superman referenced the fact, but on my Earth I came back. Is he going to do the same thing? And that being a question mark him and Lois were left with because of the fact that they know how things played out in their world.
Yeah.
Which really is this world? There's a whole bunch of stuff we got to talk about as we get into it.
There's a lot going on here. Yeah, there's a lot going on here. And it's funny because like you, I was thinking maybe he can survive it or something. And the thing that was running through my head, especially when they really started getting into, as I was reading through 52, I was thinking if he absorbs that guy's energy, because I figured out that's what he was going to do.
Sure.
And they negate each other out, maybe that would completely negate him out and he would just be Clark Kent. Mm-hmm. That's what I was thinking in my head, is that's how they're going to survive. So Clark Kent was going to survive. Kal-El would be permanent, would be gone. But Clark, and I was thinking he'd be a human and he'd be a writer, and this would be the way to protect the secret identity. And they would tell the story about how he was just empowered temporarily with the powers of Superman, and he was never really Superman, and now Superman's back. And I had all this stuff going through my head, and then as you read the story, and you're like, oh, okay. It was one of those times where the story that I read, actually, I liked better than the story I had in my head, because as I was going through playing out the story I had in my head with having a human Clark again, it was kind of messing with stuff like, what about him and Wonder Woman? Because Diana would love him whether he's Superman or not. So that would throw things off. That would make things messy, and then that would make things difficult and complicated in the story. And then Clark and Lois started having their relationships, and then we're going to, and it was, I was sitting, I'm reading it, I'm thinking in my head, playing it out, going, you know what, this ending was a better ending for it. This was actually, a better way to go. And I hate saying killing him off was a better way, because, again, as I said, this was my friend who died. So but this was a better story. And I think it's, if you had asked me that when I first started reading, this whole story, I would never said, no, there's got to be a better way. But when you see it and you read it, and you're like, yeah, this was a cool way. This was a good way for him to go. This was a true Superman ending. I loved when the Death of Superman originally first came out with him in Doomsday. I loved that story just because of just how it was such a magnitude of just that battle, that finally the slaying and then the aftermath and all that stuff. I really ate that up. I was like, man, this is incredible. This story has that same kind of magnitude for me, and it fit, even though it's a completely different way to go about it. This ending fit him, and I thought this was a really cool thing.
So let me ask you this, because I was joking around with you during the Batman v Superman episode about these stories in your head, and I'm realizing now through this discussion, this is something you do a lot more often than just on that. Because there's sometimes you'll throw things on a podcast episode deliberately to get me going, dude, what are you doing? Yeah. And you know me well enough to push my buttons, which is really half the fun of working with you. But now this thing, is this something you do normally? Like, it's obviously you do it with film. You mentioned referencing it, doing it now here. I don't think I've ever heard you reference this on the show to the kind of depth that you're doing in these last couple conversations with this. How often is this a part of your reading, watching experience? Like, were you, because it's not, if I'm guessing correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong on this, you jump ahead in the story and kind of craft your own version of it as you're reading? Is that what you're doing, or as you're watching? Where does this come from?
Let's tear down a wall here. One, I do sometimes just to mess with you. I'll admit that. And I do it to mess with sometimes with listeners, because I know I'm going to throw out something that's going to get a good response. I do. That's just my sense of humor. I'm a comedian. I got a weird sense of humor. I admit that. But part of the other thing that I do is, and this is a legitimate thing that I do, if I'm really into a story, I start taking it beyond what I'm reading. And I start taking it, how would I craft it? How would I go with it? And after a story's done, I say, okay, what happens next? This for me happened, I've been doing this probably my whole life. You think back to when I first, back when I was a kid and I first watched the original Star Wars series, so 4, 5, 6. After 6, I created a whole nother universe in my head, that was going to happen with the thing. And then when I read the Timothy Zahn series, I was like, oh, wow, this is better than what I had in my head. This is awesome. And then that became, so then I started thinking, okay, beyond that, what happened? So when like the new Star Wars came out, I was like kind of, but again, when I watched the movie, I was like, yes, they got it right. This is a cool story. So I'm very happy with it. But this is something I do with TV shows, with comic books. And it's mostly when I really, really like something, when I'm really into a story, I do this, Now, there is a flip side to that. When I really dislike something, I will also do that just because I'm like, I like my version better, and I'll run through that way. Now, with the Superman stuff, with the Batman vs. Superman, all those different stuff, it wasn't a negative thing. It was a positive thing. It was, I was into the story, and I was like, hey, what about this? And I just let my mind go, and I just kind of let the creativity just flow. And I see where my, what is in my head, where it would take it, and, it's, I don't know. It's just, for me, it's part of the experience, and that's something I run a risk of. I got a story in my head, and when it doesn't live up, when the story that comes out isn't remotely close to mine, I got to make the judgment call. Okay, is that one better or is mine better? And I will admit I do have arrogance issues sometimes where I'm like, oh, my story is better, but this is good anyways. But there are times when I sit there and I read it going, okay, this is much better than what I had in my head. So this is one of those situations where I really enjoyed where they went with this, and I really thought this is cool.
It is one of the fun things about recording with you. First of all, sometimes you'll throw out just sheerly insane things deliberately because you know the fact that if you throw that out on the show, it's going to get a rise out of me.
Yeah.
And you've like admitted this, like post-recording and stuff like that you do that. It's very funny when you do, because I know when I'm going down that path that I'm only in that state because of the fact that you've deliberately pushed my buttons that way, which is fun. I mean, it makes for a fun recording on that end. But what amazes me, too, is if I look at how many years I've known you, because, we've known each other since high school, and I would say we became really good friends more in college. I mean, where we really got to know each other on a one-to-one basis in that end and really got to appreciate each other there. So if you look at the amount of years that we've really known each other from high school straight on, I'm fascinated that 11 years into podcasting with you, I'm still learning things about you. Because I actually do find that fascinating that you really kind of craft that story and you start to own it. As far as, like this has become important to me now. I've got some events in my mind and they better one-up me. And it's pretty critical to me that either they match my level of quality or that they one-up me in my storytelling. Because at first I thought when you were doing that, you were kind of just doing it for the purpose of the Batman v Superman. Until this episode, I didn't realize, no, this is actually a thing that he does pretty regularly. To your point now, it's when it's a story that matters to you that you start to do this.
Yeah, and there are writers who constantly one-up me, and those are the writers that are on my list of people like, hey, this is one of those writers that they're, and I'll say, this is a writer I'm going to follow no matter what they do. If they're doing the phone book, I'll read the phone book. And those are the writers who are constantly one-upping me. Jeff Johns obviously is one of the people who constantly one-ups me on this, how I think a story is going to go. Gail Simone's another one. Snyder is doing that now with, has been lately really doing that with the Bat story. So there's a lot of writers out there who are, and those are the people that I naturally am starting to reach to because of the fact that I've got this story in my head. No, they did me something better. So I'm like, bravo. It's kind of like that when, how everyone says the book's always better than the movie, because in the book you create the images, you create all the stuff in your mind, whereas the movie's kind of limited to this one scope that they can go with. So people say, oh, the book's better. Well, with me, a lot of times the story that you have in your head is better, but when you get these stories that is right in front of you, you're like, oh, this is awesome. That, again, it adds to my enjoyment.
So let me ask you this, because I guess now it does frame up the Batman v Superman discussion a little differently for me now, because I still stand in a different spot than you do as far as I wanted that a singular film because of how all the beats played out on that. But are you then excited for like Batman v Superman's extra content? Because I think there's like an insane amount of extra footage that's going to be put in. I forget the amount. But are you hoping that some of the beats or some of the things that you want fleshed out are in that content? Is that what is? Are you? Yeah. Does that make you excited that there's an ultimate version?
Yeah, I think it's one of the things that I did just a replay of Batman, Superman, and some of the stuff that I wanted. I'm backing off on some of the stuff that I said where the Doomsday fight. Because you think about just how cool that fight showing Wonder Woman throw down was, and I'm like, you know what, I got to back down on that because I got to say that does have me excited for the Wonder Woman movie, and the way they ended it does have me excited for the Justice League movie. So just think about all the extra stuff. I think I'm more of now my mindset, it's kind of like the Daredevil movie with Affleck. I saw the movie in the movie theater. I was like, yeah, it was pretty good. And then you're the one who told me, hey, you got to see the director's cut. And I watched that director's cut. I'm like, man, this is an amazing movie. Why didn't they put this on the screen?
Yes, yeah.
I'm right now on that mindset with Batman versus Superman, because I know there's extra stuff. I know there's more Wonder Woman interaction. There's more, Batman stuff. There's more, Bruce Wayne stuff. There's more, there's just more pieces in this story that are going to get fleshed out. And that's the stuff like, man, I want to see that. I know it's probably going to end up being like a 4-hour movie or something, which, most movie theaters won't let you do, but to me, that is something I would want to see. I'd like throw that up there. Let's do this, but yeah.
I want to see the extra content. We'll actually talk on the podcast when it's released with the extra content about our feelings on the completed or the extra version of the movie, just to see what that's like and see if it adds anything to it storyline wise. Because here's the funny part in our discussion. It's kind of because it's funny, you reflect afterwards. I have the benefit of sometimes it's a chore. I listen to every single podcast we do back again very slowly because I have to edit them. So I hear things back again and I think through them, and that's where I usually catch, he did this on purpose. or I'll also listen back and I'll hear, well, there was some depth to this in what he was saying, because I'll hear it more objectively as an outside observer then. So with that portion in particular, I do think one of the things that we do agree on was that we would love more content in that movie, certain stories fleshed out. I didn't want them to be separate movies, but I do think the concept, there were certain things where you're like, I'd love to have seen more of this. And I'm like, yeah, I would have too. My only point was as far as cutting it for screen time, because of what you just said, the 4 hours on screen, I would have sat there easily for another hour of that film to flesh out sequences. So we're in complete agreement there. Like, I'm excited for the ultimate version. I hope it's not just action sequences. I hope there's story content in there, because I want more story out of the whole thing, because I think there's some things that they could have addressed more. I think I do know that we know who the Robin was in the case. Not that that's like a big shock, but I'm wondering if we know now. And I haven't read too much on this, other than the fact that we do know who the Robin is. Kind of like, duh. I don't want to say it because I don't want to spoil it for people maybe who don't know it for sure. Seems kind of, I think it's kind of a no-brainer for Batman fans, but I'm hoping that's in the film, like as far as how we know for sure that is. It wasn't just something Zack Snyder said, like there's actual content in the film that lets you know that. I can't wait to see the extra footage, though, because I enjoyed the movie, and I actually, more of it and having it fleshed out, I'll be curious to see what the pace is like in it. I'm going to, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, no, I'm just co-signing, so move on.
Okay. On the movie end, and then I want to move back into this part, just because this has been a great season for comic book films. I've seen both Civil War, the Captain America movie, Civil War, and now I just saw last night, it was opening night, X-Men Apocalypse. And I saw that in the D-Box for the first time. It was out your way. You and I had dinner, and you had to go. You went home because you had to go to work the next day. There's something wrong with me, and I stay up late. I really wanted to see it. I'm a giant X-Men fan. My love for the X-Men is probably equal now to my love for Batman. So when there's an X-Men movie, I've got to see it, and I want to be a part of the whole experience. I'm not going to spoil anything because I know you haven't seen it yet, other than to say that I've really loved all three movies of this newish reboot of since X-Men First Class, of the Bryan Singer movies, and I really thought this was a very satisfying movie. I saw online there were some mixed reviews of it, and I want to say openly that I fall in the camp of, man, I really had a good time with this film. They really nailed a whole bunch of things. Obviously, by the title, X-Men Apocalypse, you know it's a story about Apocalypse, and I thought the casting of Apocalypse was phenomenal. And I think that's really important when you cast the villain just right. But I really thought casting in general was a strength of this film, and I think if you're an X-Men fan, it's worth seeing. It was really, really good. I really enjoyed it. That universe, that X-Men movie universe, has taken some liberties because of the fact that they've kind of got their screen version of the universe. But I thought overall some things that were really important to me. And I'm going to stop there and just say, as a fan of that particular product line, I'm not just a DC fan. I'm a Marvel fan. We've had a really great season Batman v Superman I really enjoyed. Civil War I thought was a home run. Really enjoyed that experience. And I had a really great time last night in X-Men Apocalypse. The first time I saw a movie in that D-Box, and that certainly added to my experience. There's bits in it where where they're flying, and your seat makes you feel like you're flying, and I had 3D glasses on, and there was a couple parts where I'm like, I think I'm getting a little sick, but I'm loving it. Explosions feel different. If you haven't seen a movie in D-Box and you don't know what this is, the seat vibrates and moves. It's kind of like you're at an amusement park in one of those 3D kind of motion rides. And it's just the right amount of sound and movement and things like that. I liked that I reserved my seat. I sat down, got to watch it, and really enjoyed the whole experience. It's a movie I'd recommend, though. Yeah, I just love that superhero fans, if there's something you don't like, and I'm sorry, I'll give you a second, but if there's something you don't like, there's so many different versions of things out there now that we have, you can kind of go, well, that really wasn't my cup of tea. I can go watch this. We're not stuck with, that's our only superhero product. So I think that variety is something I'm really enjoying. I like seeing different interpretations because I have my favorites. And I think that's something that's going to be fun over the next year in particular. We're going to be able to talk, I think, a lot more about a lot of different interpretations of characters. We got animation, we got video games, we got film, we got TV. There's so much product outside of the comics that are touching these characters, that are doing it so well, that if you don't like one, it's kind of like, cool, jump to this. And that part's really neat.
Yeah, I saw the Batman versus Superman and with those seats. And so imagine the scenes where he's driving through, he's driving your car through the rubble and all that stuff. It's I was like, holy crud. That was kind of like, it's rumbling, it's going. I'm like, man, this is awesome.
Did I ever talk about my car on the show? Did we talk about this show?
I don't know.
I ended up, I had a Mini Cooper lease that was coming to an end. And I started looking for a vehicle. I work in the snow belt, and I work in Geauga County. I work in the snow belt. I'm an administrator now in my job, no longer teaching. I'm a technology director in my district, and I really love my role. I work very closely with the curriculum director, and I love the fact that I still get to wear the teaching hat, but I also, obviously by the fact that I do a podcast and things like that, technologies and video games and all kinds of technology's always been a big passion of mine. So I get to wear a lot of my favorite hats. And I still get to work with students in a variety of different capacities. So it's kind of a little bit of this, a little bit of that, of all the things that I really love about education. Well, one of the things, though, about it is I used to be off on snow days because I was a teacher, and when the kids were off, I was off. Well, I'm not now because I'm an administrator. I have to go in. Well, because I've driven to the snow belt for so many years, I was fine in my Mini Cooper getting there, and honestly, as a product goes, it's not built for snow, but it sure handled nicely. It was like driving a small tank through it. The one thing I did have this past year, though, and for Ohio, this was a relatively mild winter, this last one, kept getting stuck. When I say kept getting stuck, at work, if they didn't plow, I had to do the back and forth to get myself out of the spot that I was in. So it started getting to the point where I'm like, you know what, if I'm going to be working on snow days, I need something 4x4. I need something that's really built more for snow. I just need to kind of accept that. So when my lease ended, I was looking to buy a vehicle and buy something 4x4. So I started looking. And you have a Jeep, our other friend Jim has a Jeep, and you guys have had really good experiences with your vehicles. So I started looking at Jeeps first. I get to the website, and I'm like, oh, somebody likes me. They have this limited edition Batman v Superman Jeep Renegade. So, I mean, and I'm a sucker. So I look at it, I'm kind of like, okay, I don't want to just buy it because of this, because it really is very cliche for me to do that. So I kept looking at other vehicles, and I started looking at I really liked my Mini Cooper. So Mini Cooper has two different versions of 4x4 vehicles that are in the same kind of style of the one that I had. So I was looking at those because I was really happy with my experience with that. I kept going back to that doggone Jeep. I'm like, man, that's cool. And they've got, certain limited edition things they did to it. So I ended up getting the granite crystal one. and I did a test drive of it. I went to a workshop and I went and did a test drive of it. because I'd contacted a dealer and I just said, I'm interested in this vehicle. I'd like to know a little bit more about it. I'd like to come and do a test drive, because I really did not want to go there and just say, I'm buying it sight unseen because it's got a logo on the back. Because I really was trying to avoid the geeky part of me that was really driving a lot of this, which it really did have a major influence. So I'm like, I'm going to go in this like an adult. I'm going to get behind the wheel and really give it a test drive. In the meantime, as I'm walking up to the car, I'm seeing the bat symbol on the back, and I'm like, oh man, that's awesome. I got in the thing, though. I actually really loved test driving it. It was my first time. I'd driven your Jeep once before when you and I did a big road trip. I got the opportunity to drive your Jeep. You and I have done some extensive road trips together, and I took over for you one time, and I was doing a little bit of driving, and I really liked the ride of your Jeep, and I liked the feel of being higher, and I'm not used to that because I usually I've driven a lot of smaller cars that are a little lower to the ground. So I drove this, and I really loved it. And honestly, I will 110% admit that the fact that it was a Batman Superman limited edition was also a geek out of the whole thing, but I really actually love the style and the design of it. So I do have the limited edition vehicle,
and it's a good car.
The Granite Crystal, yeah. Oh, I love it. So. I really love it. You got to see it the other day. I like it looks sharp. I'm really happy with it. So anyway, getting away from movies and extra tchotchkes and stuff like that. Let's jump back. Let's talk a little bit about Justice League and then go into Rebirth, because I think there's bits of Justice League we'll talk about during Rebirth, but I think we do need to talk about the ending of Darkseid War a little bit.
Yep.
And some of the revelations there, because the baby was finally born, and the baby was Alexander Luthor's, which is why it has the powers. The reverse Shazam name does have some sort of powers on that end, but it all just goes a little bit further as the whole event and thing was going on. We had all kinds of situations going on there. We had the rebirth of Darkseid, and Darkseid being controlled by Grail and the Mother, and it was really just an amazing event. We saw the death of the Anti-Monitor during this event, and major power plays. One of the things that I really loved about the Darkseid War is a lot of times you have villain versus hero, and that's your story. I love those stories. This isn't me knocking that. Sometimes when you've got these villains, though, and they're coming from different angles at the storyline, you got the crime syndicate, you've got Grail and the Mother, you've got Darkseid, you've got the Anti-Monitor. Sure, as a matter of convenience, they link up, but very rarely do you see these villains turn on each other the way that they did in this storyline, for reasons that made so much sense to who these characters are at the core. We saw a lot of swerves where, oh my gosh, did they just do that? Did they just kill this person? All for power play purposes, all for agendas, which is really what motivates a lot of these villains to be quote-unquote villains. So that part of the storyline I really found fascinating throughout it as the whole thing was happening. I loved the swerves, and I loved that it had a positive, ending for me. At the end, I really enjoyed how the storyline went. What were some of the beats that you really enjoyed about that?
Well, the villain versus hero versus villain versus hero versus villain kind of storyline that we had going on there.
Yeah.
And that actually, you touched on it, where you've got villains, they're going to double cross. When is the double cross going to happen? And is it one of those just, you saw that coming? No, they did some really great swerves with a villain becoming a hero, but not becoming a hero, and they stayed true to who they were, and you never, at any time, when I'm seeing the heroes and the villains work together, was I ever like, I don't know about that. When you have that villain staying in character and understanding completely why they're doing it, and you have the hero staying in character, knowing, okay, I'm going to get a double cross here, let's prepare for it. And those are the kind of stuff that I really like when you get these team ups like this. And for me, massive swerves with the rebirth of Darkseid, and just everything that played out with his return, and just the return of, Apocalypse, return kind of the New Gods in a way, I guess, sort of, maybe, I don't know, still trying to figure that stuff out. And I think that for me is, again, that kind of neat mystery where this piece has been reintroduced back into the universe. It's now out there. Where this is going to go, I don't know. Apocalypse, where is that going to go? we don't know exactly. And I like the fact that there's a lot of mystery out there about where these stories can go down. And maybe we'll get a story later on. Maybe it'll be a while before we see it. Maybe it's going to be in the Rebirth issue number, Action Comics Rebirth #1. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that can come out of, that came out of Justice League, 50 that can make an appearance in this Rebirth universe, especially when you're talking about Luthor. And I thought that for me was one of those great moments. I loved Luthor throughout this, where he got supercharged power. He loses a power, but he still doesn't lose it because he's Luthor. He knows how to play the game. He knows how it is. And going right from 50 into Action Comics, we're going to see Lex Luthor, in large and in charge. And I love that. For me, being the Lex fan that I am, I loved seeing that Lex did not lose a stride and did not lose a step at all throughout this. And in a way, he kind of lost a lot, but because he's Luthor, he may lose, but it's not a defeat. It's just a change in the plan. It's just okay, let's go on to the next phase here. Let's do this now. And I thought that for me was some really cool stuff with Luthor.
Is he gaining what he always wanted? Was he jealous of Superman? Is that ultimately what was driving it? And in the end, is his goal now to be better than Superman, to be a better Superman? I don't know. I'm curious to see, is Luthor in that book going to be hero, villain, or somewhere in the middle? I don't know what the answer is to that, and I could see that because of the nature of Lex Luthor, the motivating factors behind this particular direction could really drive Luthor being any one of those three things, and that part to me is fascinating. Because he is a character that has, as many sides to him as a diamond, where you can just kind of see the different facets to him glowing and kind of go, some of them are very dark, some of them are very bright and shiny, and everything in between. And he's a fun character when well written like this. That part I thought was really, really a great revelation of all this whole thing. Wonder Woman with a brother.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that particular tidbit?
That was another one of those oh my god moments for me when I'm reading this, just because this is another child of Zeus, because we're not dealing with the Gumby Wonder Woman. We are dealing with, she is the daughter of Zeus. So is her brother now. So what can he do? What is his abilities? Where's he coming from? We know his name is Jason. Now, again, we've known of a Jason that they've had in this universe. I don't think it's him. I think it's, it's somebody. I don't think we've seen the guy yet, but that'd be kind of interesting if maybe he's somebody else that we don't know yet, or he's somebody we do know that we didn't realize this was who it is. Or again, this is one of those where I'm throwing around where is he, because initially they kind of left it in the mystery. Is he on the island? Is he out in the world? And then later on in the Rebirth issue, I think it was the Rebirth issue, they talk about the fact that he is out in the world, because Grail is talking to Baby Darkseid saying the son is out there. He is out in the world, and wait till Wonder Woman finds out more secrets. And it's like, it was one of those things where there's so much, where is this going to go? Like, you think about the Wonder Woman title, she's one of those bi-monthly titles where the one is present day and the one is past. So, are we going to see Jason when they talk about the past? Are we going to see the hiding and the concealment of her brother? Is it going to be something that soon and that quick that we're going to get these Jason stories? Or is this going to be something that is going to happen as she's got to search for him in the present day? Then they do a flashback in the next. And I think there's so much stuff they can do with this Wonder Woman title that another one of those where I'm very excited to see where this is going to play out.
I hope it beats the story in my mind.
Exactly.
Because I got a story in my mind on this one where it's this 8-parter, right? It's the quest for Jason. Wonder Woman's going all over the world, jet-setting around, trying to find Jason. She finds little clues, little tidbits to where Jason is. And when she does it, she finally wanders into this bar. And inside the bar, there's a bunch of people sitting, including a mailman. The door opens up. Everyone yells, "Jason!" And he comes and hangs out, and he's just a guy.
He's got a place where everybody knows his name. Yeah.
Honestly, I like that we know very little about the storyline right now. Also, they talked about the Island of Lies. We were talking about this a little off the air, and I laid out that, I was thinking maybe it's Themyscira. You were thinking, maybe it's something closer to home. I think maybe you mentioned New York or something like that. What has kind of been your thought process?
I said Manhattan.
Okay.
The first thing that was the first thought that popped in my head, the Island of Lies. And again, this isn't an anti-New York thing, even though it is. But you think about just everything that happens in New York City and just how crazy life can get there. That I don't know, they can maybe call it that, or I don't know. But then you threw out the Themyscira stuff, and when I was rereading this, I think you're right on this. I'm going to say I'm probably not right on this. I think that they're talking about Themyscira being the Island of Lies, but I still like my New York thing. Yeah.
Wait, I think you need to clarify the statement you just made, though, for your own sake, because this is me as a friend looking out for you. Could you realize what you just said? You're like, well, this isn't an anti-New York thing, even though it is.
Yeah, exactly.
What does that mean?
I'm still mad at the Yankees, okay?
Oh, so you really do mean it as an anti-New York thing.
I'm mad at the Yankees. I'm still mad at them, okay?
All right. Chill out. It's okay.
Hey, how many years did it take me to get over my hatred?
I thought you were kidding. I thought you were kidding. You weren't. All right.
I'm mostly kidding. It's okay. All kidding aside, yeah, I'm mostly kidding. The Yankees do anger me because they've beaten the Indians multiple times and they've caused the Indians multiple chances at World Series. So that does anger and annoy me just because of that. But as a whole, New York City is a pretty cool place. So I'm not going to knock it. It's not Cleveland, but it's still pretty cool.
Anyway, so that leads us to Rebirth. Another story in your mind. I actually do have a question for you about stories in your mind, though, seeing as we're going into talking about Rebirth and the issue. Now, obviously, this is a rather extensive issue, so it's not a fair issue to weigh this out on. But when you do craft like a story in your mind, are you crafting it while you're reading for the current issue, or are you crafting what you think is going to happen beyond the current issue when it's an arc? How does that work?
It depends.
Okay.
It really is a depend thing. If when I'm getting the initial stuff reading, it's usually not while I'm reading, like with the Superman, because I had a lot going into it. By after part 2 or part 3, that's when I started crafting where it may go. Where you're at Rebirth, you're sitting there just going, as you're reading this, it's not crafting anything because I need to see what's happening. But once I got done, then I start thinking about, well, what about this? What about this story? What about this title? And there's a couple that I've started, pulling out stuff, trying to figure out, okay, what about this? Maybe, and as I said, there was something that as we get to it, it started creating something in my head. But it was on my second and third read through, fourth read through, maybe even, that I started creating something out of this that we're going to see. And when we get to the point, I'll bring it up.
So let's jump into this issue because there's things, obviously, I think we're going to start getting really spoilery with it because I didn't see what the Watchmen at the beginning. And because last thing I thought this was going to was Watchmen. Man, did this read different in my second read through when I knew where the storyline was going and recognizing that this was John Osterman, Dr. Manhattan, who was telling this little bit of the storyline. That part really, because I thought at first like this whole thing was just exclusively being narrated by Wally, and it is, but the Watch part was not just reminiscent of Wally, it was reminiscent of Watchmen. It's twofold. So it is very much Wally as a narrator, but during the narration sequence, it's also giving you hints to the big bad of this storyline. I loved how this played out, because where they really swerved me is I was so focused on Wally, I wasn't even thinking about who the big bad may be. I thought that it's cool that there's a big bad in this whole thing, but I wasn't really overly focused on that part. So as we're going through this storyline, we see Batman down in the Batcave looking at his reveal from Justice League, which we didn't really talk about, the Joker reveal. I thought we were going to get a name for the Joker. We didn't. We got a swerve that I wasn't expecting. There aren't one, but there are 3 Jokers. And it's the variations on the cosmetic look of the Joker that we've seen over the years come directly from the fact that there are 3 of him. it brings about a lot of questions, and I find it fascinating and exciting. What do you think about that reveal? Are you excited about that? Is that interesting? Does it explain a lot to you? Do you think it's too much? What do you think about that?
Oh, I'm actually thrilled about this, and I'm excited about this, and I'm curious where they're going. And again, that was one of those things where as soon as I heard that, you just start thinking like, oh yeah. And then I love the scene where you've got the 3 images of the Joker up, and you're looking at them going, yeah, they're very similar, but you know what? They are different people. And it was something that as comic book fans, we kind of look past slight variations because it's a different artist doing it or a different artist creating that storyline. So we kind of look the other way, but they're using that to their advantage. I'm like, man, that is awesome. That for me was a great way to do this. And again, it opens up the question, who are the Jokers? Who are these? And it was one of those things, it was like we were talking, last night about this. I was like, are these Elseworld? Are these alternate Earths? Are these, what is this Joker? Who is he? How did he come about? And again, something that did pop in my head later on was we know who the big bad is. So we know it's Watchmen. We know it's Dr. Manhattan. Could he have created some of these Jokers? Mm-hmm. Could he have, taken something from his world and put it into this picture? Could one of these Jokers actually be someone from his world? And it's one of those things where like there's so many different things they could do with this little revelation. And I'm assuming they know what they're going to. I'm assuming they didn't just introduce this to just throw it out there, but they're actually going to do something with it. And you were saying that there's going to be a definitive Joker origin, which they could very easily take the popular Joker origins, say this one was this one, this one was this one, this one was this one, and go that route with it. Or they could do something completely different that we're not going to see coming. This is one of those things where I'm so glad the talent they have writing the Batman and the Detective Comics stories, because I'm assuming that's where this is going to play out in. That's where we're going to get some of this the questions on who the Joker is, and we've got some power heavy hitters writing the Bat universe now, so I'm very excited where this is going to go out.
Yeah, I am too. I'm going to say right now that I think it's a multiverse thing. The same way we've had 2 Supermen, I think that's what it is. That being said, I'm not 100% sold on that. I'm loving this storyline. I'm happy to follow it through and see where it's going. There's a bigger story that's happening here, and I like that all of these things feel connected in some way. I gotta say how much I'm really digging Batman's new costume. I like that it's kind of reversal of the old gold shield, in the sense that the gold is an accent. It's not predominant. I like I like what they did with the belt. I like the visual style of the whole thing. Wally coming back and trying to connect with Bruce first, figuring that Bruce's intellect and Bruce knowing about the letter from his father, him having a tether to Flashpoint and pre-Flashpoint because of that, might make him someone that's able to figure it out. When Wally showed up, it was such a geek moment for me because I'm a big Wally fan. It's funny how you get settled into and really are enjoying the current Flash, but then one of your favorite characters pops back up and you're like, oh no, I love him. This is right. They need to do this. Why haven't they done this sooner? I love this. I don't know that I was really in that place where I'm like, we desperately need Wally right now until I've been reading him in this. Now that I'm reading him in this, yes, we need him. Here's the thing. The Titans book was on my radar before. Now it's a must-read.
Yeah.
And it's because of the fact that we've got Wally in this moment. Man, it was super cool. The connection with him and Bruce and what's going on. I like that he went to Bruce first. Mainly because this goes back to things like Crisis, where Bruce was seeing the apparition of Barry, and Barry was trying to connect with him. Now Wally's trying to do the same thing to Bruce in this timeline with what's going on here. So, echoing the past in the right way. And I love that mystery aspect of the whole thing.
Oh, God, yeah. And again, with you and me and our different Flash relationships, this was one of those, again, I'm becoming more of a Wally fan. I am enjoying Wally, and these were some cool stuff. I love just that desperation and that reaching out that he did throughout all this. That really, but I don't want to say desperation as a negative thing. You see this guy who's just like, I gotta make this connection. And he's not doing it just to live. he's doing this for the universe. He's doing this to save them. And I think that for me is when you have those hero moments where they're like, you got to remember, Bruce, remember the letter from your father, from Thomas Wayne, is how this all started. And I love just, you see the desperate, you see, and he's getting ripped back into the Speed Force, and it hurts. You could just the way they drew the energy and just the lightning just ripping at him. You can tell he's in a lot of pain right now, but it's a gut check thing. He's got to keep through. He's got to, just trigger something in Bruce's mind. He's got to get Bruce on this story. And I love the fact that he went to Bruce because of the greatest detective in the world. You introduce a mystery to him, he's going to start looking at it. Even though Bruce didn't remember who Wally is, he's now on the case. Bruce Wayne, Batman, is now on this case. I thought that for me was a really cool moment.
The thing that I love that they did then is when they did this origin of Wally, just, it's a very quick thing, brings you up to speed of Wally, his relationship with the Titans, brings him up to, what happened with Barry and the Crisis back in the previous universe, him becoming the Flash, Barry returning, everything being great again, then the Flashpoint event, bringing everything up to speed, but then introducing for the first time in the storyline the big bad. I say that with a question mark because, man, this is really interesting how this is happening. And Rorschach might be pretty interesting on this one because some of his conspiracy theories were very true. Yeah. This is going where I think it's going to go. I really loved how Chapter 1 ended. And I liked that this was broken up in chapters. I really loved the pacing of this book, that it felt like the chapter ended with a very satisfying ending of like the first tidbit, the first foray of Wally, giving us just enough to kind of, take a breather. I certainly didn't stop reading at the end of Chapter 1, but man, I liked the pacing. I liked that it was broken up and then took us to Johnny Thunder.
Yeah. And again, not 100%, sure on who Johnny Thunder was. I knew basics of him, so I wasn't lost with this. Though when they first start seeing the old guy running from him, I'm thinking, okay, who is this? And I didn't know until they started releasing about the whole Thunder Johnny. I'm like, find the Justice Society. I'm like, oh, use the genie. Oh, okay, I remember this guy. It was one of those things where I was like, that's kind of cool because again, I didn't know too much about him, but the fact that they're telling the story and they're bringing it up to speed. Somebody who has a vague knowledge of this stuff completely was brought back into pace. And once again, I love the fact that you're seeing how much pain Wally is in. This is tough on him. It hurts, and again, the hero's got a gut check. The hero's got to knuckle up, and it had me wondering, are we going to get the Justice Society? Is he going to be able to bring back the Thunder? What's going to happen here? And again, great intro, great getting me wondering what's going to happen with Justice Society.
Do you think Johnny Thunder did something with magic with them back during the war? When they were to reveal themselves, did he mask them and hide them in his own way? Because the Thunderbolt, he cast the Thunderbolt away. Was it after he did something to hide the Justice Society? I don't know. I'm very curious. Because I think right now, I don't think this Johnny Thunder bit's a throwaway. I think it's pivotal to the story.
Right, because he's talking about McCarthy was telling him, take off your masks. And it was the whole, the anti-hero movement. And I think Johnny did actually do something to hide them. Because he's talking about, because that was the thing, Wally was talking about, use the genie. You have the power, Johnny. Use the genie. Find the Justice League. It was one of the things, Johnny did something to hide them. It's like history may have been stolen, but your friends weren't completely lost. So they're still out there. The Justice Society is still out there. But the question is, are they all going to, because this is, back in World War II era, they're all up in age, or is this going to bring back a younger version of them? Is this going to trigger something else, or is this going to be one of those next generation kind of things of the Justice Society? I don't know, and that's the thing that has me wondering where this is going to go.
They've been brought back over the years to a younger version of themselves through magic. Where it was the classic version of them, but they were somehow magic enabled them to be in our time at their peak age, so to speak, if that makes sense. But yet they were still had the memories and they were veterans and stuff like that. So I don't know where they're going with this. I can't wait to see where they're going with this. I'm glad that the whole McCarthy thing and everything they're doing here, there is a comic history of them being asked to remove their masks. Here's the nice thing about the Justice Society storytelling. It's been updated and changed and modified, but this is part of a variation of the Justice Society lore. I'm really glad that they're bringing this in. It's something that Johns does really well. He often looks to the past and says, oh, that was a cool element of those particular characters, and modernizes and bring it to today. What's great about that is it always brings back the characters with their core values, the things that you dug about them to begin with, while at the same time making them feel fresh and current. I'm totally confident in this. I can't wait to see how they bring back the Justice Society. I'm willing to wait for it. I know it's on the table as something they're going to do. I don't know how far they flesh that out, but he certainly laid the groundwork for that. Speaking of laying the groundwork, Saturn Girl.
Oh, God, yeah. This was another one of those where as I'm reading through it, you're like, okay, you can't see who she's talking to. And I just loved how it played out.
Wait, it's not Saturn Girl. Who is the one that's the precog that can tell the future? I don't think that's Saturn Girl. They've got a blonde that's a precog.
Because I've seen the future. Yeah, that's not Saturn Girl.
No, it's not.
Oh,
it's the precog. I'm so drawing a blank right now, but go ahead.
But again, as this was playing out, I thought this was hysterical because just the way she was just how she was presenting herself. I've come to speak to Superman. Superman, huh? Yeah, I'm a friend of his. You don't say. I believe I just did. I love just a little witty banter going back and forth with the police. And again, they immediately think, okay, she's off her rockers. She's saying she's seen the future. Where she comes from, fruit is free. She's got to be nuts. And then you get that because as this is playing out, I'm like, who is this? Who is this? And then they show the Legion ring, and I'm like, yes, we got Legionnaires. Because I was Legion of Superheroes is one of those books that you listen to the early podcasts. I was like, I don't know about this. I had my whole issue with the one guy with this beard, and I was like, now I'm like, these guys are awesome. I love the Legion of Superheroes. I want more of this. But I do run into an issue with the Legion that I don't know their names. I always loved in the book how they used to give a roll call so I could refer back to it saying, okay, that's so-and-so, okay. Because there are so many of them, I do get confused sometimes. So, but I'm very happy that we still have a Legion in this universe. And I'm glad that they're being introduced and they're going to have a place in the rebirth.
Dream Girl.
There you go. And she's with what's his name? Dream Girl was with what's his name?
Starboy.
The guy who had the beard that
Starboy or Starman.
Starman.
He was Starboy and then he became Starman. But from the Legion. I don't know. I'm completely geeking out. I don't know why I thought Saturn Girl. You know why I thought Saturn Girl? Whenever you think of Superman's initial meetings with the Legion, it's with the three, Lightning Lad, Cosmic Boy, and Saturn Girl. Those are the three that you think of. So I was going there with it. I wasn't thinking of the fact that I've already seen the future, so it's got to be Dream Girl. That's cool. It's really, really cool. You had to have been geeking out like I did with where this went next.
Oh, God, Ryan Choi, he's back.
Yes.
And again, I was cheering, hooping, and hollering the fact that he's still alive, and we're going to get Ryan, and we're going to get Ryan as the Atom. And again, this was another one of those really great moments because it had all those little bits and bits of it where Ryan is just kind of stumbling on the belt, and he's going forward, and he is Palmer's assistant, and you get the whole thing. And I love the fact that Palmer's talking about his wife Jean, and the alimony check will be late, and so once again we're confirming that identity crisis never really happened. So that is a story that kind of got erased out, that kind of got blocked out, and this is more confirmation of it. And again, this for me had just wonderful moments of, because I want to see Ryan put on the belt. I want to see his first couple experiments with this. I want to see him and Palmer doing their thing in this microverse. There's so many different things that I want to see out of this Ryan Choi, because again, this kid is completely different than the previous version that we're used to. This one's a little bit more geekier than the Ryan we knew, but again, I'm okay with that because I want to see this, apprentice under Palmer. This is, where is this going to go? And this Palmer, he's a little bit older, a little bit more experienced with what he's doing. So there's going to be some neat stuff that is coming out of this, and I was very excited.
I like this idea now they're bringing back Legacy. So you've got both versions of of Adam running around. You're going to have Blue Beetle, the two versions running around. One of them, the connection with the two is the fact that the Scarab's on the back of Jaime. Where's he getting help from? Ted Kord, a young Ted Kord who gets excited and eager about that kind of stuff. I love the nod to the fun factor of Ted Kord. There's a sense of wonder in his eyes through all that. I really dig it. I'm very excited for that book. Now, Dr. Fate, is that our boy?
Which one?
Yeah. You and I are saying the exact same thing right now, because I'm looking at that and I'm like, is this the guy from the current comic, or is this the original Dr. Fate? I don't know. Go ahead.
When I first read this, he looked to me to be the original Dr. Fate,
sure.
not the Dr. Fate that's currently in the comic book. This looked like JSA Dr. Fate, which had me going, what the heck is going on here? Because again, where is this coming from? And that's something I want. And that's the biggest question I have going. It's the biggest one of the biggest questions I have coming out of this is that I still don't have a solid answer on is who is this Dr. Fate?
I like that now the Scarab is more than just an extraterrestrial. You're dealing with magic, and they're talking about that whole concept, and Ted gets excited about that. I love where this is going. The Dr. Fate costume, honestly, I am such a fan of classic Dr. Fate. I love that the suit's reminiscent of that. I don't know that I'm really right now so worried about who's underneath, in that I like the presence and the tone of the presentation of Dr. Fate when he walks in. I want to know who it is, and I'm excited for that. It was very well handled in the scene because I was geeking out. It has the right amount of legacy for me that I'm intrigued and I want to know more. It had me wanting a Dr. Fate book on the slate.
Yes. And I'm hoping by his appearance here, maybe in the Blue Beetle book, he's going to make recurring appearances.
Sure.
He's going to be a reoccurring character in there, especially because they're saying that the Scarab is magic, not technology. Which, again, originally the Scarab they had was magical powers. Then they said, no, it's alien. Now they're going back to the whole magic thing with the Scarab. And I think that's kind of, again, I'm happy with it. I've got Jaime and I've got Ted. And I've got Ted being Ted. There's just those cool moments where he's building the bug. And he's like, it's a mobile Batmobile. It's a mobile Batcave. I don't want it. Who doesn't want that? I'm thinking the exact same thing right along with him. Who wouldn't want a mobile Batcave? That is awesome. I'm right along with Ted on this. And I thought, again, great handling of him. And of course, this has me so eager to get Booster Gold back because I want Blue and Gold back.
Yes.
I want those two back together again just because, again, but will Booster know about the previous universes? Will Booster have knowledge of this? What's going on with Booster? That's, throughout all this, that really is something that just was kind of ringing in my head about the Blue and Gold. What about Booster? What's he going to know? What won't he know? As they reveal more of this, what's going to be the universe, it's having more questions and having more excitement for me. I think that for me is something you need to have. And I'm like, dang, this is awesome. And you go back through and you reread a couple stuff and you see, again, seeing Ted putting on his what will be the goggles of his mask, with his symbol on the T-shirt on his chest, and just everything that's coming through. Where in this universe we're going to have multiple Blue Beetles out there. We're going to have multiple characters out there, and especially because we're talking Watchmen universe, they got Owlman over there. That's a direct spinoff of or inspiration for, I don't know which came first, the chicken or the egg, but Owlman and Blue Beetle, they're basically the same character. So are we going to see those two characters interact? Are we going to get moments like that? Because for me, that's something I would really like to see.
What Owlman? What are you talking about, Owlman?
From Watchmen.
You're thinking of Night Owl.
Night Owl, Owlman, yes.
Well, Owlman's the Crime Syndicate character. That's what was throwing me off for a second there. And I thought you meant Watchmen. So, I mean, your point wasn't lost. I just wanted to clarify that I was, in fact, hearing you correctly on where you were going with that. Yeah, I don't know that we're going to get that, though. Because all we know for sure is that, let's just say it's Ozymandias and Dr. Manhattan are the two. So I do think that this is taking place post the Watchmen series. Very curious to see. We do know that certain humans are still alive, but are they a part of what's happening here or not? I don't know. So many questions. Speaking of questions, I love that Damien's 13th birthday is where he's planning something big with the Teen Titans. I thought that was geeky. Power Ring becoming a Green Lantern officially, Volthoom dying at the hands of the Black Racer, I thought was really super cool. I wanted to see Aqualad back in the worst way because I really liked the introduction of this Aqualad. I'm glad that they're reimagining and bringing him back in for the new, the Beyond New 52, the Rebirth version of the universe, where they're now converging and bringing back some of the elements that we really liked, bringing back Legacy again. I can't wait to see this character. I'm just as interested in seeing this character because we know he's going to be on Teen Titans from the cover, but what is his relationship with Aquaman? And that part interests me a great deal.
Because you think about just this character, when he was last in the universe, he had connections to Mira's people. And connections to Black Manta. Is that kind of stuff still going on? Is that going to be in play? Who is he? How has he got his powers? Because they're talking about him swimming like you do,
Jim,
and he's sitting there. Yeah,
you're connecting the wrong character. That's not the same character.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So this is our first version of him since the reboot.
Okay, because I was thinking that this is that guy.
No.
Okay.
Because that was Tempest that you're thinking of. Aqualad, this version of Aqualad is not a character that we've seen in Aquaman's book.
Well, okay, I'm thinking of the kid who had the dreadlocks before.
Right. He hasn't been in the New 52.
Well, he was in the previous universe.
Right. If you're saying that, we're saying the same thing. But he he was not in the New 52.
Correct. Yeah. We're saying the same thing.
Okay, good. Okay, then I'm sorry, I misunderstood then.
But we are on the same page that we're thinking it's the same kid and all that stuff. Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. You were referring back to pre-Flashpoint.
Correct. I was referring pre-Flashpoint.
Sorry. Yes, you're 100% correct. I misunderstood. Okay. I misunderstood. I thought you meant New 52, that he was a part of Mira's people and part of the.
Well, that was the Aqualad Tempest who's going to be in Titans and
right.
That guy. Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. I misunderstood you. I'm glad you clarified that. I agree with you. That I mean, it's honestly, this character's one. I know you and I are both big fans of this character. Glad to see him back. He's going to be an interesting character to see in this. I don't mind the sexuality issue in that one. I mean, as far as, with them changing it, it's clear they're doing that to add some diversity. I don't know that I remember pre-Flashpoint them ever identifying his sexuality, so I don't really care. You know what I mean? It's not something in the character where we're tacking it onto the character for the sake of making him diverse to make him diverse. If I'm making any sense at all, I don't mind when you do something like this and you're like saying, this is part of his personality. This is part of, who he is as a person. He is gay in the case, as I think where they're going with this whole thing with him.
Yeah.
It doesn't bother me at all. I actually like it when they do it with a character who, there's been no definition of that. Okay, now we're going to go somewhere and add some diversity to this character. For some reason, when they just do it for the sake of, let's add diversity, now let's make this character gay, I have a problem with that because to me, that never has legs because of the fact that it's just tacked on. In this case, it's more of here's something you didn't know about this character now. I'm intrigued by it. I don't know if you feel the same way about it. I like it better when it's organic, when it's we're taking this character that's already interesting, that we began to flesh out before Flashpoint. Now we're telling you something you've never known about this character versus changing something about a character that you've been heavily invested in, that you already know about relationships that they've had, if I'm making any sense at all.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. For me, this has always been something that it doesn't either way bother me. I agree. It's and for me, I've always thought I like it when a hero is a hero.
Yes.
Now if he happens to or she happens to be, fine. If she's not, fine. For me, the key is he's a hero first, and we're going to see him go down this path. And this is a young kid who doesn't know who he is or why he can do the stuff he can do. So I think he's going to be one of those ones on the Titans that's exploring who he is as a hero, as a person with these powers. And you think about him and Damian on a team is going to be something kind of interesting because Damian is going to be the way I'm reading this in my head and the way from Batman and Robin issue where he was talking about how Damian was going to step up and be the defender of Gotham and step up his role as a hero. Him taking on Titans, I see it as him going to teach these young people how to be heroes, the way he learned from his father, the way he learned from the others, from the other Robins. I think him kind of taking this kid under his wing, I think is going to be very interesting, because I don't think Damian has that much interaction with people that he's going to be able to deal with, a team dynamic. And you're adding this kid onto that team. I think they're going to be a kind of a cool combo, especially we're getting the other Wally. We're getting a couple other, different heroes on that team. I'm very excited for this one, because the grin on Damian's face as he's coming up with this idea, I always crack up with that little monster when he starts thinking of a good idea, but then you introduce a brand new character. Well, not a brand new character into the mix. Let's see how he interacts. I'm very excited once again for Teen Titans.
Jackson, actually, one of the things I like about him, and I make a little addendum to what you said, it's not just him learning how to be a hero. Titans are family. Yeah. So when you've got a kid, like, one of the things I liked about Jackson is he's talking about what he did at the lake and the fact that with the boys and things like that, that's part of his relationship structure. One of the things that I like about that is Titans at their best have not just been about them learning how to use their superpowers. It's a bit about dealing with their interpersonal relationships and what that's like, whether it's with powered or depowered people. Donna Troy had a wonderful relationship where she got married, had a kid, and all that type of thing. That was a part of who she was as a vibe. Wally had relationships. Dick Grayson had relationships in and out of the Titans. His relationship with Corey is a great example about that. Cyborg had relationships. Garth, that was part of the team dynamic, was that part too. So, I'm interested in knowing, what is his relationship with this boy like? Does the boy know that he has powers or not? What will that mean for that relationship? That stuff's intriguing for me, and it's far more intriguing for me when it's a character where it's a new facet of them, because I start to get invested in it. I think that's where I'm really going with that, and I'm excited for the Titans book, because with this teaser, they're kind of showing it's not just going to be about their powers and learning how to use them. It's going to be about them learning how to be people and growing up being a teen when it's already an awkward thing to do, and learning how to be, a future adult and how to interact with others and build that as a friend. Well, I mean, look at us. We've been friends since high school, right? We're still friends today. Those friendship bonds that you are lucky enough to craft in your teen years, whether they're just an introductory friendship or it's an ongoing, it's a stronger friendship very early on. You and I are both people who, a majority of our closest friends are people that, whether we see them all the time or not, are people that we went to high school with, that we're still friends with, or before. That says a lot. Some of my friends are friends I went to elementary school with as well. Those relationships mean something. I'm excited to read this book as an adult now and reconnect with that part of my life. Seeing the fact that Jackson feels like a contemporary teen with contemporary issues excites me about that book. Teen Titans, when it really hit by Marv Wolfman, was very contemporary. The one we didn't showcase at the time was an attempt to be contemporary. I don't know how contemporary it actually felt at that time, and I'm really not knocking that book. It was clearly a period piece out of an era. The 80s one with Wolfman, clearly at this point now, is out of an era. This one now has the potential to be the Johns run was out of an era. This run has the potential to be out of an era. I hope it is. I can't wait. I'm really super geeky excited for Teen Titans right now. And these little teasers did that for me. Jackson's a character I've wanted to see back in the DC Universe. Very, very excited to see him.
Yeah, he was one of those that, and I know there have been multiple panels where people have asked about him, and he's a character that, people have wanted to see, I've wanted to see, and everything you were saying, echoing, I'm agreeing with you completely. It's, again, as we said, Rebirth really got me energized for some stuff. Teen Titans, I am extremely energized for. When I heard Damian was going to be on the team, I'm like, okay, that's good. I initially was like, okay, I'm still getting my Damian stories, great. Then you start seeing who's on his team. You start learning about the team, like, oh, this is going to be interesting, Damian interacting with these crew. And again, Damian's one of those where he's that lovable little monster who, as time has grown and he's changed, he's evolved, he's matured, he's changed his outlook on a lot of stuff, but there is still the trained by the League of Assassins, son of the Bat, in him. There is still that in there. He hasn't had a completely loving childhood, so he's a little messed up as well. So you're getting this family dynamic together with him in the charge, with him in the driver's seat. I'm, again, very excited for Teen Titans.
I love the Pandora thing. First of all, I wanted to pull out marshmallows. because chestnuts roasting on Pandora's fire. But honestly, I really, really love that whole sequence, because reading it through a second time and seeing what happens to her, oh my gosh, Dr. Manhattan did that to her. But I didn't, I didn't know that with the beginning. I really loved. And her reaction to him shows this is the same one that was in this spot at the end of Watchmen, where he was really questioning and becoming more and more disconnected from the world. You know what I couldn't help but thinking as I was reading this through in my most recent read-throughs? What would have happened if the Atom book had taken off? Because we were both big fans of that Atom book. Would this have been the Atom? Could this have been the Atom? I don't know. I would love to know how long this was maybe a potential concept at DC. Here's the thing. I love this. I love how it played out. I love that it was the Watchmen. To me, that's geeky and very interesting. But I could have seen this being the Atom as well. And I love that. I would be happy either way with this to go. But that was the end of this chapter, seeing the blow-up of... It really, in many ways, symbolic of the ending, officially the ending of the New 52 as we know it.
Yeah. And it was... interesting, because you think about how there was that hidden character throughout all those things. Oh, there she is. There she is. We kept looking for that hidden mystery character, and it ended up being Pandora. Well, now Pandora is no more. And I loved how they drew her destruction. It was the same as in the epilogue with the end of Owlman, when he was sitting in the Mobius chair. It's that same artistry of that explosion, which completely was, it looks like it did from the Watchmen book. And then as you're sitting there going, of course, I should see that. It's clearly taken from that same style of what we got in Watchmen when he was blowing stuff up like that. It's the similar stuff. Oh, wow. But hindsight's 2020.
It is.
So, yeah, and it's, again, it was one of those great things where you see this massive explosion. You're like, man, that's cool. Watchmen never entered my head throughout any of this. It wasn't until the big reveal at the end. And I think that, for me, they're giving you these clues. They're showing you this stuff. And, again, it's in my follow-up read-throughs, I've been reading art. I've been trying to see on, like, any sketchings on the walls or anything like that, if there was any hidden Easter eggs that I missed. And I didn't catch any. I don't know if you did.
Let's talk about Jason.
Oh, good.
Because he's got...
Is that actually being in there, or am I hearing it in my head?
He's got this great power. And it's clear he looks like at some point in time he was at a camp. So I'm throwing it out there. Wonder Woman's brother is a mass murderer. No. Honestly, I love the way this storyline does a great job of bringing in the classic while recognizing the fact that there's those of us that are fans that have been loving the New 52. I think this book does a great job of bridging two different DC audiences right now. There is the lapsed fan that got disenfranchised by the New 52. And, we've been doing the show straight on through, and you and I really were digging what was happening in the New 52. I have a lot of people who I know that are listeners of the show that are still reading certain DC books. Some have dropped almost all DC books because of the fact that they were not finding a connection to what they loved about DC. So I think there was, here's the thing, like, I loved Batman v Superman, but I recognize that movie was polarizing and that there's people who feel, in all different avenues. Our own discussion about it on the show was threefold, with three of us on here. You could really make a strong argument that all three of us had a very different experience. The New 52 is doing the same thing, where there's different audiences, as far as their preferences with regards to the New 52 and what they feel is missing from DC. The nice part about this is it offers a nice bridge, I think, to the classic fan and to your fan that's been enjoying the New 52 without alienating any of that crowd. It brings elements back into the fold while not saying, hey, guess what? These books that you've been reading for 52 issues don't matter now. They do. Everything matters. That's really important if you're trying to bring audiences back together. Make everything matter in a way that feels organic to the storyline. Johns has been a master at doing this with events, to making things come back and make sense and be a part of the universe. Infinite Crisis did a great job of this back in the day. His JSA run, when he brought back Hawkman and so many elements of that, did that. He brought back Barry. He brought back Green Lantern. He's done this before where he just knows how to do this with these events. I love what's going on with Grail and the fact that Darkseid's son's out there. The death of Superman bit, that we see, where we kind of see the aftermath effects of that and how this is affecting all of the heroes that are there. That part, I think, is really great, how everyone's kind of converging. Because this is Superman. This is their world Superman. But then it goes to one of my favorite moments, and I'm sure you're kind of in the same place I am. Ollie Queen, Dinah Lance, they don't know each other the way they did before. Yet there's that part of them that has a familiarity that they can't even explain, and a sense of loss. The writing in that, the way that it was drawn with the mirror images of the two of them, and this loneliness that's there, I loved the way that whole sequence was framed out. They're two of my favorite characters. I've always loved their relationship, and I'm really glad to see that they're addressing it in this way.
Yeah, it's fun. It's funny. I agree with you. I completely love that. And but I want to go back really quick to that
Sure.
2-page spread right before that.
Okay.
Because every time I've read this, I always focused on a couple stuff, and I always focused on how Wonder Woman is drawn with, Supergirl right next to her. And I always thought, man, that's really cool. You see, Trevor in the back there in his uniform, and just focusing on that kind of stuff. There's something I missed.
Okay.
And it was something I missed through multiple read-through. Captain Atom sitting right there in the middle of all that.
Oh, wow.
I completely missed that, because I was always focused on Wonder Woman. I saw, Starfire there. I was like, he's right there. So he's in this universe.
But he's also not the Captain Atom we'd been reading recently.
Right.
It's the old Captain Atom.
Yeah.
Interesting.
What if? Now here, let's throw another what if out there.
Mm-hmm.
What if this Captain Atom we're seeing standing there is actually Dr. Manhattan?
I don't know.
Because everyone says how they got the same power sets and all that, and it's, again, one of those chicken and egg thing, which came first. What if this guy right here, this is, Dr. Manhattan sitting in this universe right now, interacting with the people?
I don't know. And what if Mr. Oz is Ozymandias? I saw that somewhere.
That was the other thing that I was thinking about. Again, something that it didn't click until second and third read through. When I was going through, he's like, "Call me Mr. Oz." I go, okay. Then later, like Mr. Oz, Ozymandias. Oh my God! I want it again. Has me thinking. Could they already be in this universe?
Yeah. No, you may be right.
And of course, the motel is the Siegel Motel. I thought that was kind of neat.
You know what I loved? One of my favorite moments was the sweet moment with Aquaman and Mira. Yeah. It is proven comic. It's funny how for years there's been that thing. You can't marry characters. You can't do that. It's that it takes away stories being interesting. Every bit of that story is interesting to me. Like, seeing that moment is so interesting to me. Especially reading the books with the characters that we have been. I'm really invested in these two characters. And seeing them finally reach this point in the New 52, I was really afraid, and I'm glad that the powers that be are starting to see things a little differently. I was really afraid this was going to be a thing that you'll never see this in DC again. And I'm glad that that they're hearing the fans, but also being judicious in how they're like, let's keep things fresh while at the same time exploring elements that fans really want that we've been lacking in our universe. And I like how they're getting the message while at the same time still focusing on great contemporary storytelling. I think you've got to find that balance in there. Sequences like this made me go, wow, I'm very, very interested in this.
They are the characters that I think need to be married.
Yep. Because
the king and queen of Atlantis needs to, they need to have this, actually formal, marriage between them. I think it's something that would be missing out of these characters, especially if you look at what's currently going on in the Aquaman book with her being kind of the ambassador of Atlantis and everything that her role that she's going to have as Aquawoman, officially taking the name Aquawoman. She needs to be married to Arthur. She needs to be the formal queen of Atlantis. And I thought this was one of those things where I was like, man, I'm so glad they did this here. Because this was, again, like you, I was wondering what they were going to do, where they were going to go with these characters.
Linda, seeing her there and seeing Wally reach out to her, I so wanted her to recognize him.
Oh, God, yeah. I was rooting for that. And now, she was at that meeting in the park, correct?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And that's where that was all from. He was watching all that and finally saw her and tried to connect with her, and that didn't happen. So that leads him to the last possible place that he can go. There's little teasers to what's going to go on in Gotham, to John Constantine, to his relationships with the Captain Cole, or Captain Boomerang, I should say, Vic, Cyborg, Dick Grayson, none of them see him. What do you think about the explanation of there being two Wally Wests and who they really are to each other?
I like that, and again, this is my ignorance of Wally and all that stuff, because I always thought because we've got Wally West that is the narrator, and then we've got the Wally West that's been in this universe, and they're cousins. And it's, they explain it how the Wally we know, his father is Rudy, and he had a sister and a brother, Iris and Daniel is the other Wally's father. Now, I always thought that the Wally West that we're used, the old Wally West, his father was Daniel, and that whole story was him. But again, I don't know any of the names or I don't know if they're just kind of throwing this out there or if this is an actual explanation or how things are playing out. It's my ignorance of the West family.
Well, the Wally West that we're reading in the comics now is new.
Yeah.
The kid. He's brand new. He was crafted for that, and that was, obviously it was a way to kind of bring in Wally West as a concept, but to craft some diversity. I like what they've done here even better, because you're not getting rid of that kid. He's still there for the reasons, and I'm intrigued by him. I actually really like the kid, so It's a smart move. What they've done here is, why can't we have both? And I agree. Why can't you have both? This gives a very valid reason for both. I know we're saying the same thing. I'm not contradicting you. I'm more agreeing with you and kind of expanding on it, because I love that part of it, because I'm a big fan of classic Wally. Here's the thing, though. I like the kid. So I have no problem with this kid being on Teen Titans, Wally being on Titans, because what's intriguing about the boat is this kid is straight out of the New 52, brand new invention. Wally is from the pre-universe. What does that mean for the Titans? How much are the Titans going to know about him and their relationship with him in the past and all that? Fascinated by this.
Yeah, and the thing I loved about this sequence was, one, it gave us a definite explanation as to who each of the different Wallys and all that, and so I'm cool. I'm glad that we've got that solid explanation. But I also love the fact that you see the kid's excitement. You see that, awesome, where he's in Wally. It's the other Wally is like, you know what? The Flash legacy, the Kid Flash legacy is in good hands. This is, this kid's got the right idea for Flash. And it was kind of a acceptance of who he is. And again, with the stuff we've seen of him in the Flash book, I liked the character. I liked where they were going with him and his development in that title. So I'm like, cool, we're continuing on this cool story. It was neat to kind of get the blessing from the previous Kid Flash to the current Kid Flash. Nice connection of everything. I was very happy with this. And again, another excitement towards the Teen Titans, because again, he's somebody that I want to see interact with Damian. Again, another where I'm like, man, this Teen Titans team is really coming up good. This is going to be some interesting, cool reading.
This is where they kicked me in the gut with Awesome, because that swerved me enough. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're really killing him. Yeah. And I thought that he was going to be, because they talked about the death of a hero in this, and I thought, okay, this is the one. It's going to be Wally. And his speech to Barry, I was kind of like, he's trying to give Barry information to set Barry on the path, all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, oh, don't do this. I love this character. Don't make this move. And at the last split second, Barry's like, I don't understand. You were right, Barry. Every second is a gift. That's why I won't die in anguish. I go with love in my heart. Goodbye, Barry. Goodbye. All of a sudden, Wally, grabs him and pulls him out. I did not see that coming. And maybe I should have. Maybe other people did. I did not see it coming. And that part was because I think I was so emotionally invested in Wally's goodbye. I was riding with Wally on that journey, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like it. And they're writing it so well. When he yanked him in, I was like, this is like the coolest thing ever. Like, they just brought Wally back. This is the coolest. They had this way of taking that moment and turning that moment where he grabbed him and yanked him and pulled him in. And I was like, this is awesome. Absolutely. I was hoorahing. This is something that when DC Comics are well written, they do really well. And it's these moments that you just kind of go, oh, that was just incredible. It was positive. There's no villain there. He's dying because of what's happening around him and because he's an echo of the past. There is no villain in that moment. It's just Barry recognizing his friend and saving him. That was awesome. One of the most awesome events I've read the whole year.
I cheered out loud. I cheered out loud with that moment. And like you, I was sitting there like, man, they're killing off Wally. Man, they're killing. Then just that Wally, and he reaches and pulls him in. I was cheering, and then I love those moments where, as Wally's dying, you see the tears. And he's like, "Goodbye, Barry, goodbye," and you can see the tears coming down. And then just that moment when he pulls him back, and then I love the fact that Barry gets so emotional after. He's like, "I'm so sorry, Wally. My God." He's like, and he's sitting there, he's like, "How could I have forgotten you?" And I love just that again, those great Barry Allen moments of, how could I forget this kid? How could I forget someone who is so important in my life? And I was like, man, these are right here. These are some great hero moments. And again, I'm limited on the dealings with these two, but you still can see the passion. You still can see the love there. You still see just that connection. And I was just like, man, this is awesome. And I loved how they flashed to his Titans. And these are the Titans from the Titans Hunt. Yep. You've got Red Arrow with that stupid trucker cap on.
Yes.
You've got Dick Grayson in the other in the costume. You've got Tempest in the back there. You've got War. You've got him. It's like not War. Hawk. You've got sitting the people from Titans Hunt right there. I was like, man, this is awesome. And it goes back to the part where, when Wally's first trying to talk to Bruce, telling him, hey, they took away 10 years. They took away, or maybe it was even before that. Maybe it was in an inner dialogue. I can't remember right now. But he's talking about how not only did they lose the memories, but they took away a decade. They took away something. And here are those lost years. Right here, this is the stuff that they lost. And I'm like, man, this is awesome.
Wally's revealing to him, though, this isn't it. There was more. There was more of a life. It wasn't just that you forgot. There was something before the Flashpoint. He tells him about that Flashpoint event and, how it's harder for him to remember, and that there's something bigger behind all of this. They took years from us. They took, a whole different situation. There's so much more to this whole thing, trying to find out the event. I love seeing Batman as Batman's looking through. And Batman finds, hidden in the Batcave, the Watchman symbol there.
Yeah, and the smiley face. Yes. The comedian smiley face.
Right. That part was so super cool there. And until we get to the epilogue where we see the planet where Osterman's always been, and him talking to Adrian Veidt, saying, in the end, nothing ends, Adrian. Nothing ever ends. I can't wait to see where this all goes. The 2-page spread, the greatest heroes, their greatest threats, DC Universe Rebirth, kind of seeing everybody brought back in again. I love Wally's new costume. Donna Troy back in the stars, kind of her classic outfit. Seeing, is there 2 versions of Superboy? The Kid, and then, is that Connor?
Okay, give me a...
Over by
I
Cyborg.
see the Kid. He's kind of like Batman's legs.
Right.
He's above Constantine.
Upper right, under the Shazam family, which I'm geeking out over too.
That's the Chinese Superboy.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I guess I was hoping that was Connor.
Yeah, then you see Superwoman over there above Donna Troy.
Right. Yeah, that's cool. I just like the layout of this page. I really like seeing all those characters. I'm excited for where this is going. That's the exciting part of this. The best cover, though, I love all the covers that are there. My favorite one is the Titans one. Dan Abnett with Brett Booth on the art.
Yeah.
Wally West uncovers a secret that will destroy his friends.
Yeah. Here's going back to the greatest heroes, their greatest threats.
Yeah.
You see Huntress.
Yeah.
And that's obviously Matron.
Oh, yeah.
From the Grayson story. So, because I remember we speculated before, that's obviously her.
Well, we had that confirmed already, though.
Yeah.
So I was excited about that. We get to see Zatanna in the background there, too, and the Demon. I mean, there's all kinds of cool characters that are in the back there.
Hey,
yeah.
We've got 2 Robins. We've got Damian, who's right by the Flash. And then we got another one.
Yeah, Tim Drake.
Okay, so he's going back to the Robin costume.
Yeah, he's in that Detective Comics. You know the team that's in that. It's Tim Drake, Batwoman. Oh, who else is in there? Cassandra Cain. They're also going to have Clayface. It's Batman Training. Spoilers in there, too.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Detective Comics is a team book.
That's awesome.
Batman and Batwoman are running that team. And there's a storytelling reason for that team to be together. But Tim Drake's going to be Red Robin in that costume.
Oh, okay. Neat. I didn't know that.
Yeah, kind of going back to his roots. Ollie going back to a goatee.
Yeah, not as massive, but still kind of a classic look. I like that.
Yeah, I do too. Really, really good stuff. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for all of that.
And this is just so. I tell you, man, I'm thrilled, and the Superman costume I really dig. I gotta say, I really like the look to him. It's again slight tweaks to what was before, but still, it does have that solid, Superman look, even though he's getting rid of the armor look.
Well, it's kind of a nod to the armor look, while at the same time a nod to the classic Superman look. I like it being echoes of both, something new while being that.
Yeah, something I just noticed right now. Adam's riding Wonder Woman's shield.
That is cool. Now, which Adam is that? Because I know Ryan Choi is going to be a big player. So is that Ryan Choi?
I'm going to assume that's Ryan, but I can't imagine Ryan would have the guts to actually ride Wonder Woman's shield.
Well, I don't know that anybody would. So I don't know that Ray Palmer would exactly be a go-getter for that either.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, there's no Hawkman, though. We do need a Hawkman because I always liked
just
Ryan.
JSA.
What?
JSA would be my preference anyway.
Oh, big time, yeah.
So I'm okay to wait for that because that's not referenced in the picture. So they've got me on that one. So let me go ahead and read. I've got a few listener voicemails. I mean, not listener voicemails. Sorry, listener emails that are actually about this topic. This first one's from Zach Alafy, and I'm sorry if I butcher your last name, Zach. Hi, Sean and Jim. I want to write you guys to talk about the amazing DC Universe Rebirth book and the amazing event we had at our store. I am one of the owners of a comic book store called I Want More Comics, and I remember this one. I already sent you guys rings years ago, and the last time I called in was for the New 52 launch show. We had a special midnight opening event where we had a huge sale on DC back issues, trades, and hardcovers, and of course sold DC Universe Rebirth. We had a huge turnout. It was the second biggest event of our store, with Free Comic Book Day being the biggest. We did a live podcast talking with fellow DC fans, and we had to stay open until 1:30 a.m. to sell the DC Universe Rebirth books. It was so fun to see the huge line of people with their heads down reading the issue as they waited to check out. The event was such a great time as a personal DC fanatic. Now let me talk about the actual issue. Wow. Jeff Johns is, in my opinion, one of the greatest writers ever. What he did with this issue was so smart, so fun, so exciting that I cannot wait to get my hands on the new Rebirth titles. My plan was already to buy every single DC book, and this Rebirth special just makes me feel very happy about that choice. My favorite moment from the entire book, over all the fun reveals, returns, and plot points, was Wally and Barry hugging. I think that moment has been one of the best moments in comics in a long while. The whole issue is one of the best comics I've read in years, and as I said again, I cannot wait to see where this book goes. I could go on for hours about how wonderful this comic was. I also cannot wait to listen to your guys' show about Rebirth. I've been listening to the show for 10 years now, and I've loved every minute of it. I am super excited to head into this new era of DC Comics, both as a reader and as a listener of Raging Bullets. Keep up the amazing work and whatnot, and that was, of course, from Zach. And we'll put the link to his comic shop in the show notes. I'm excited that comic shops are finding success at events like that, because I'm a big video game fan and stuff like that, and I love midnight openings for that type of thing. I'm glad that comic shops are taking advantage of that culture as well, because I think people get excited for that. I couldn't wait to read this one, and that's something that I think is really important nowadays, is not only to make the book themselves feel like an event, but the opportunity to buy the book, the opportunity to be a part of the social experience of buying the book. I've been to midnight sales before for comics, really love them. I remember the New 52 launch, going to midnight sale for that one. I think it's great that these are happening, and I love hearing comic shops have success. So congratulations to Zach, and I Want More Comics for that one. Very cool stuff. Hi, Sean and Jim. I'm not sure if this will make the episode, but I wanted to chime in on the Rebirth book. I hated it. Terrible. Just awful. In all seriousness, this was one of the best written, best drawn books I've read in a long time. Jeff Johns seems to have poured everything he had into this book, and the same could be said with the artists, colorists, letterers, to make just an amazing book. It's gotten me so excited to get back into the DC Universe. I love that we get Wally West as the narrator, and that it's a younger Wally West in the Kid Flash costume, but he realizes it's not right and he should be older. He remembers his time as the Flash, and that's a great plot point. One of the characters who wasn't brought into the New 52 is the one who realizes that something's not right, and I love that he's our guide in this issue. It's cool that we get a history of Wally West, because it's possible for those who started with the New 52 they may not know who Wally is. I love all of the things we see from Johnny Thunder in the elderly home to Saturn Girl being arrested for stealing food because of where she's from. Food is free, which makes sense because she's from the future. Then we get Ryan Choi looking for Ray Palmer. We also get Jaime Reyes and Ted Kord. Ted Kord. I got so happy when I saw him back in comics, but these are two examples of legacy that I am so happy to see. We get to see glimpses of Damian becoming a teenager, the female Green Lanterns, asking who Sinestro is. We get to see Jackson, who I'm assuming is going to be Aqualad. Then we got to see Pandora and what seems to be her end. Having read the book twice and knowing the plot twists, she seems to meet an end in a familiar way, like it happened to another character in some book called Watchmen. We also discover that one woman has a brother and a reborn Darkseid. I haven't read the New 52, so this confused me a bit. So, the New 52 Superman died. Okay, I love the page where we get to see Ollie and Dinah seem a bit empty without each other, but they don't quite know it. I love that the pre-52 Superman and Lois Lane and their son, Jonathan, are at the Siegel Motel. Rather awesome. Mr. Oz? Ozymandias, maybe? Aquaman proposing to Mira is so cool, so I guess they never married or just were not married in the New 52. Then we see Linda Park, and it broke my heart how she didn't remember Wally. We get glimpses of a new dynamic duo in Gotham, John Constantine and Swamp Thing planning something, and then we get Wally in a Flash Crisis on Infinite Earths pose, trying to speak to Captain Boomerang, Cyborg, and Dick Grayson before seeing the other Wally West. I love how they explain that this Wally West is actually the pre-52 Wally's cousin, and they are both named after the same person. Well done, Jeff. Then Wally sees the Flash, and he thinks it over, so Wally goes to Barry and says his goodbye, and at the last second, Barry remembers Wally and pulls him out. When I saw Barry's arm pulling Wally, I had to put the book down. I was so excited about this. Seeing Barry remember how Wally and how sorry he was because he forgot him was just moving. One of the best scenes I've seen in a comic in such a long time. I loved it. Then Barry remembers everything for a bit as well, and Wally explains that it wasn't Barry's fault but someone else. Someone more powerful than the Reverse Flash or even Darkseid, and that even now they're being watched, and we see Batman holding the comedian's smiley face pin. We then get an epilogue that seems to bring in the Watchmen characters, and wow, this book was so amazing. It's gotten me so excited for what's to come in the DC Universe that I'm probably going to go back to reading a few books monthly again. I'll probably wait for twice monthly books, but I can't remember the last time I saw everything DC was putting out as just so appealing to me as a reader. I can't wait to hear your episodes going forward. Keep on raging, Jamie Dunst. See, that's a success. And one of the reasons why it's a success, he basically laid out, I haven't been interested in this. The New 52 disenfranchised me. And that's very clear from his comments here. He's geeking out. And here's the thing, it's getting him interested in, okay, who are some of these characters? What are the New 52 versions like? Aquaman and Mira, okay, they weren't married there. They're getting married now. This is a great bridge for a fan who's lapsed to say, we're putting back in some of the elements that you've been missing to attach to you. We want to bring you back into the fold. And we're going to bring in enough toys that this world will feel like a world you want to be a part of, while at the same time starting to bring you up to speed on what's going on in this world that you haven't been a part of. That's a successful bridge. He mentioned a few areas where he's confused, and that makes a whole lot of sense. But I do like that. Look at how much depth to enthusiasm was there in spite of all that. Really cool.
And it was funny because we had our whole discussion about Saturn Girl, and we thought maybe it was Dream Girl, and he threw out Saturn Girl as well. And it just dawned on me, Dream Girl has a little star on her mouth, or next she's got like kind of I don't know if it's a tattoo or a birthmark, but doesn't she have that little star kind of right by her mouth? And the girl, whoever the Legionnaire in the issue, didn't have anything like that. I think I'm back to saying it's Saturn Girl, not Dream Girl.
I still say it's Dream Girl. I think Dream Girl's just platinum blonde. I don't think that she has a star. I think you're thinking of her costume. Are you talking about like a birthmark by her cheek?
Yeah.
Okay, let me go back into Rebirth and see that sequence again, because that part you may be right on. I want to see who this girl is, because I guess I was assuming because of the precog, because I thought Saturn Girl at first as well, but then she said she seemed to imply that she was a precog, which that isn't Saturn
Well, she said
Girl.
She's seen the future because she's from the future.
Oh, okay. You're right, because I've seen the future, because she's from the future. Take it back. Right. It's Saturn Girl. It's Saturn Girl. That's completely, you know what, the way you framed that up, I'm like, you know what, you're 100% correct. Once you frame it up that way, It can be any of them.
Right.
That could have been a guy, and it would have been, from the... So that it just means it's Legionnaire. All right, this last one's from Phil from Gates Mills. Like many of the DC faithful, the New 52 left a little bad taste in my mouth. With the advent of Convergence, it looks like the changes were happening. I mean, they negated the Crisis on Infinite Earths, for goodness sakes. It looked like something big was on the horizon. Then the words Rebirth emerged. Images of the Flash and the Green Lanterns popped in my head. The word itself is synonymous with the word Crisis. Big things happened to either of those words and is uttered in the DC universe. This time should not have been any different. Rumors started to swirl. Wally West is black. The white guy. Race does not matter, but our Wally West is back. Our Superman is back. You know the one. The post-crisis or pre-Flashpoint Superman is coming back. And he's got a kid. And he's not being a deadbeat dad. Then Wednesday finally arrived and my head sinks down in shame. The beginning of the issue looks very promising too. Good old Wally is back. And hey, the other Wally West is still relevant too. Bravo, DC. You get to keep your diverse card another 6 months. Aquaman proposed to Mira. I wonder what kind of fish they will serve at their wedding. Ollie and Dinah are going to be back together. Who wants to buy a copy of the wedding special? Is it in really good condition? Then, Batman finds something in the Batcave, a button. A button? Not just any button, a smiley face with a little speck of blood on it. Alan Moore must be sacrificing the extra goat this week. This development was intriguing and took me by surprise. I had to know why right away. I sat down and reread Watchmen several times. Then I reread Before Watchmen series. As I sat on my really old couch, I continued to think about things. Then it hit me like a ton of omnibuses. I knew the answer to my question. The disappointment started to set in. The elements of surprise were gone. I knew exactly what was going to happen and why it was going to happen. Dr. Manhattan is an agent of Hydra. That was insane. But the thing that I like is, that's two different emails where we're hearing from lapsed DC fans that are enthusiastic about this event. And I really thank both of them for writing. Actually, all three people for writing in, because we got different audiences there with their kind of feelings about this whole event. And I think that's pretty representative of this. I'm glad to see lapsed fans coming forward and saying, hey, no, this was meant to target me, and it did. I'm, getting interested in this. And I hope that is a general piece of this. Here's the smart move they made. 80-page book at $2.99. Really giving an intense amount of story for a price point to say, listen, we really want you to read this. We know that we're asking you to give us another chance and to invest us again. So we want to prove to you that we want to earn back your trust. And this is for it's not for you and me they're targeting on that. We're already on board. They really need to reach out to that fan that no longer is reading their product that they've lost. Smart move. I think that $2.99 price point, 80-page issue, does that make a difference to you as a reader, Jim? I know you and I would have bought it anyway, but if you're thinking about trying something, because you and I both have a time budget as well as a sort of a financial budget on this type of thing, does price point make a difference to you when making decisions in comics? Because, I know you're in our financial situation. How much does that affect you in trying
that's a big
something?
Time. That's a big time. And I think it goes back to, you think back to when they had that whole hold the line at $2.99 promo they did, where, where they dropped the prices back down, and everybody reacted. That was a thank you. And people were, enthusiastic about them doing that. And I think, that $2.99 was a brilliant idea. They need to keep that in mind and just say, okay, we did really well on sales at $2.99. It's the laws of supply and demand, where you have your optimum sales pointer where supply and demand cross, and there's this whole graph thing and statistical business type of whatnot that happens. And part of the things people say, well, if you drop your price, it's going to automatically increase your sales. Not necessarily. You have to have that ideal price point where it will encourage sales, and where you're not losing money by having it at such a low amount, such a low amount, but you don't want it so high that it's going to drive away sales. You have that optimum point, and I think that $2.99 number is that optimal point for this current, for our current market and the current people out there.
I agree with you on that. I think that does make a big difference, that price point. I think, because what it is comics are getting more and more expensive. I think the hard part is I'm a big fan of paper and digital. I like both. I want them both to be around. I want comic shops to be around. I love when I go to places where I haven't been before and they've got comic shops that I haven't been to and visiting them and kind of checking out product and things like that. I always want that market to be available. The catch is, too, though, being able to increase a new audience is very cost prohibitive in comics. Comics are expensive. And considering that comics have a ton of competition nowadays, and when I say expensive, I'm not in any way, shape, or form belittling the amount of artistic talent that goes into them and the fact that those people need to be compensated. They do. I'm a believer. I'll pay more than $2.99 for a comic because I believe in the medium. When I talk about cost, it's not about insulting the need to properly compensate people. It's more, to me, it's expensive to get in on this hobby if you are not already a fan. And I think to hit a new audience is becoming harder and harder due to cost. It's hard to take that fan that's already buying things like video games and digital media and getting a whole bunch of stuff free off the internet now and say, you're going to want to spend not just $2.99 a month, but multiple $2.99s a month, $3.99s a month, $4.99s a month on various books to get on board with this brand new hobby. That part is really hard, I think, nowadays to do that. And I don't know the answer. They got me. I'm hooked in. And I want it around. So anytime I ever talk about my frustration about price point or bringing in, new readers and things like that, it really is more selfishly, I want more people reading. So this medium's around for a long, long time for me. But quality of issues like this are a great way to start doing that. A $2.99 issue that's 80 pages to hand off to somebody, that's an easy pill to swallow.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious to see where this goes next. I can't wait for Rebirth. I'm excited for the whole event. This really just cemented me, and I was already there. But there's a difference between being excited and being geeky about it. I'm geeky about it. I'm really in that place. I'm totally geeking out. Super excited. That Wally Berry moment cemented it. Jim, I want to put one more quick addendum on. I found one more listener email that we've got, and this one's from Isaiah Stevens. Hi, Sean and Jim, longtime listener, Isaiah Stevens here. Just wanted to give you a few thoughts on Rebirth. The issue was a super emotional one for me because my first ever comic book was the conclusion of the Blitz storyline from Jeff Johns' run on The Flash with Wally West. So seeing him return to that character was fantastic. Wally West is my favorite character in comics, and even though I thought the New 52 was fantastic, there was always something missing for me. Johns brought back that perfectly, using Wally West to highlight the legacy aspect of the DC universe that always made it unique. Ted Kord, Jaime Reese, Ray Palmer, Ryan Choi, seeing all of them together was awesome. Johns really knows how to write an emotional moment. I'll admit I tested up when Aquaman proposed to Mira, and I full-on cried when Barry saved Wally. Such a perfect issue that made this longtime Wally West Flash and DC Comics reader happy. Love the Watchmen twist because I feel it's accurate. Looking forward to seeing how all this unfolds. Long live the DCU. And I can't agree with him more. That part, I did get choked up at the Barry Wally moment and got excited for that. And I love that people are keying in on that moment as being a pivotal one in the book. But the return of Legacy, that stuff has always been important to me too. I've always felt that DC felt like the longer running universe. I've never been an anti-Marvel guy. I love Marvel. I love their comics. But Marvel always felt like, and this isn't a negative, it didn't have the same legacy that DC did. I actually liked the distinction between the two universes. That was never a negative for me with Marvel. It was always kind of DC's thing, and then Marvel had their thing. I think in this day and age, it's far more important for me as a reader to have the distinction between the two in flavor and tone, because I think Marvel's got their own thing that they're doing so well. I think DC needs to, be back into doing what makes DC great, because I think it does appeal to different audiences. And I think your television shows are really broadcasting this, because if you take a look at how successful shows like The Flash and Supergirl are, they tend to be your more positive themed shows, whereas Arrow's more of your traditional dark brooding, kind of Dark Knight style character, which I love about Batman, don't get me wrong, but I've always loved that DC wasn't just that. It was so much more. So it's just good stuff, and I'm glad he's noting that.
Hello, Sean and Jim.
Hey, Sean and Jim. This is Jamie Dunn's calling. Long time, no call-in. I saw Batman v Superman, and after maybe a week or so of processing it, I thought I'd give a call in to give you my thoughts. And they're basically, I was disappointed, but I liked the movie more than I thought I was going to like it. I had seen all the reviews beforehand, and while I agree with a lot of it, there were parts about the movie that I really enjoyed. The things I didn't like were, I felt everything felt forced. I don't think anything in the movie really, like, it earned. It's like the certain things, like Bruce and Clark toward the end when they became friends. I feel like it wasn't earned. Like if their mother's name were something other than Martha, like that's what brought them together. Like the hatred for each other felt forced. The fight scenes was okay, but the fact that both of their mothers were named Martha is what brought them together. Really, it felt forced. It felt like they're rushed. For a 2.5-hour movie, it felt like a lot of things were rushed in order to get to the Justice League. The scene where we see Diana looking at all those files, it seemed like something they tacked on like at the last minute. I think Ezra Miller is completely miscast as the role of Flash, Barry Allen. However, having seen him, I wish they had brought Green Lantern, because I think he would have made a pretty decent Kyle Rayner. I just don't see him as Barry Allen. But, I don't think they did enough for Superman. I don't feel like anyone gets that character in this movie. I feel like he's just not the character that Superman should be. And I understand that people think, this is a modern version of Superman, and, it's more grounded and more realistic. It doesn't feel like Superman, and it doesn't feel like a character that I want to root for. But that's enough of the negative stuff. I just wasn't overwhelmed. I was very underwhelmed with the movie, but there were shiny moments. I love Ben Affleck as Batman. I think he nailed the role. I thought the Batman costume was probably the best Batman costume I saw in a live-action film thus far. I think Jeremy Irons as Alfred was spectacular, although I think every Alfred they've ever casted was pretty spot on. But I love Jeremy Irons, and I love the interaction between him and Bruce. I kind of wish there was more of that. I think, the more I think about it, the more I really liked the Alexander Luthor character. I think, as even in the comic books, they update Lex for whatever generation he's in. And so I understand what they were doing with it. I think at times he lost me a bit here and there, but like the scene with him and Superman on the rooftop, I thought was excellent. And that was everything I wanted to see Lex Luthor. I thought that Wonder Woman was amazing, and I wanted more of her. And I love her theme music when she is first introduced, and I can't wait for her solo movie. I think it's going to be great. And I love the soundtrack. The music was great. I think Hans Zimmer nailed it once again. So overall, very disappointed with the movie, but there were bright spots. I mean, there are other things about the movie I didn't like, but I felt disappointed at the end, but I was still glad I saw it, which I can't say about a lot of other movies. There are movies that I was just disappointed in, but this had some good moments. I wish I had more good things to say about it, though. But on the bright side of things, for me at least, I am looking forward to what they're doing with Rebirth. I haven't been this excited for DC Comics, having seen all their announcements since probably like Green Lantern, the Sinestro Corps War. I'm so looking forward to a lot of different titles. There are probably too many titles that I could, there are more titles that I want to get now than I've ever wanted to get from a DC in years. And I can't probably afford all of it, but I'll probably at least get them in trade when it comes out. So at least on that aspect, I'm looking forward to DC Comics what they're going to do, bringing back some of what we missed, integrating with the new stuff, and seeing what they do, because I love DC Comics. I love the characters. I want to see stuff that is going to interest me. And I think after what I feel was a lot of missteps in the New 52, I think the creative people at DC, they're looking to kind of bring some stuff back, and I'm really happy about that. One of the two things I thought specifically I really liked was the Kid Flash costume, and the fact they're doing Superboy. I think that it's great. I think it's a lot of cool stuff, and I'm looking forward to it. And the last thing I want to talk about was the Flash Supergirl crossover, which I don't think I've enjoyed an episode of television like that in such a long time. All of the little Easter eggs, like Cat Grant wanting to call Flash the Blur, and all these little nods, and it was so much fun to watch a show like that, especially after watching Man of Steel. It was nice to see fun in the DC universe, in the television universe, and everyone in that was great, and I can't wait to see what they do with the series, and I hope it comes back for next season. So that's my little talk about the good, the bad, and the underwhelming. But I can't wait for Rebirth. I can't wait for more Flash and more Supergirl and more Arrow, and I will hopefully talk to you soon. Bye, guys. Hey, Sean and Jim, it's Jamie Dunst again. So I just watched Batman v Superman for the second time. I said in my last voicemail that I was going to do that, and I did with a friend of mine. My opinions haven't changed, but I feel like I can understand where they're going from it. I went to this second viewing with a different mindset. One of my friends has said, go see the movie with the fact that this is a alternate Earth. And I'm used to doing that with DC Comics. They have the Elseworlds, and we've seen Superman in different variations, Superman as if he was born in Russia or things like that. So I can do that. So I went into this movie with the idea that this is an alternate DC universe, and this is not the Superman I know. This is not the Batman I know. This is not the characters that I know from the comic books. This is the Snyderverse, as I'm going to call it from now on. And I enjoyed it a little more. Motivation still bothered me. Things still felt forced. Things didn't feel earned enough. But going from the idea that this is just the Snyderverse, I enjoyed it a lot more. I enjoyed Jesse Eisenberg's Alexander Luthor a lot more the second time around. I kind of liked that he was smart, but kind of like all over the place. Looks like generically the same role. And again, I'm just not a fan of the Ezra Miller casting. I think it was completely wrong. I think he would have made a better Kyle Rayner, Green Lantern. I'm just not excited for him. I'm just not, nothing. I mean, I'm glad that he likes comic books and all that, but I just don't see it. And that kind of makes me sad. Maybe it's my idea. Maybe it's my own thing because I so love the Flash television show. I think that show is so much fun, and Grant is Barry Allen, and maybe because I'm judging too harshly that I can't see this guy as the Flash, but I just don't. I can't see him. To me, it's like getting the guy who played Paul Pfeiffer in The Wonder Years and having him play Batman. I just can't see it. You know what I mean? So hopefully it'll be good. I love being proved wrong. There's nothing more than I like to eat than crow, and hopefully this will be good. But everything I've seen from that movie involving the Flash doesn't look good. But overall, my appreciation of Batman v Superman has risen. It's not my favorite. It's not my favorite movie. I still don't understand why people would say this is the best superhero movie ever. I don't agree with that, but I see its value. I see what they were trying to do. Again, I'm not a huge fan of Zack Snyder. I simply don't think he has. I think he's very narrow vision in how he makes a movie, and can't stretch his creative juices to do more things. But it was still enjoyable. It was a good movie. I'll say that. It was a good movie. Maybe I will own it at some point, but which would be a step up for me because I don't own Man of Steel. So hopefully that will be good. I just, it just disappointed me a little bit still, but I enjoyed it more than I did the first time. However, I did love Supergirl. I watched the Supergirl crossover, and that was just amazing. It was so cool to see the Flash and Supergirl and having all those little Easter eggs, like how Cat Grant was wanted to call Flash the Blur, and just the show felt so fun and so lighthearted and so just amazing. And I'm loving everything about Supergirl. That's about it. I want to just thank you guys for the podcast. You guys keep me updated through all the New 52 stuff that I wasn't reading, and so I really appreciate that. You guys put such a positive spin on on these books. And while I'm not a huge fan of a lot of the stuff that happened in New 52, I loved listening to you guys talk about it because it kept me in the loop, kept me interested, and I always look forward to the next episode. So, guys, have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
It is kind of one of the interesting things I think about this film is the fact that I think I've seen so many different takes on experience with it. And I think that's actually kind of similar to what's going on, I think, with Rebirth, how this event's kind of playing out in the DC universe. I think my sadness over Batman v Superman is the fact that I went and I enjoyed it, had a great time with the movie, and it hit a home run for me. I want that movie that everyone kind of enjoys. I like the reaction. I liken it to the reaction of the New 52 versus the reaction with the current Rebirth book. So far, from everything I'm reading from fans, everyone seems to universally be loving what came out of Rebirth. I haven't seen any negative reviews of it. Now, admittedly, I'm not going all over the place looking for reviews, but everything I'm reading so far, I'm just seeing a lot of people that I know at least that are tweeting, loved it, great, cool moments, it's, hope, everything's back, this the stuff I really was looking for back. And just overall, like a positive sense of optimism towards where DC's heading, with this being the pivotal launch point of that. I wanted that out of Batman v Superman. I'm glad that the guy who wrote Rebirth is helming the movies. Is one of the people that are there, because he gets it. And if he can bring some of that into the films right now, we're going to take things that I'm really liking and make them work. I could not be more excited for the Wonder Woman movie. I think that's one of the things Batman v Superman got right. And it seems to be a universal, because he was applauding that part and really liked it. And that's one of the things, no matter what people feel about the film, I haven't seen anybody yet, have you, that hasn't liked the Wonder Woman stuff?
No, she's been one of those across the boards everybody has enjoyed. And the one thing I always I know it happened every time when I saw it, when she first makes that first appearance, the audience cheers. When she has that first, and I'm talking during the fight with the Doomsday fight, not when she first shows up at Luthor's thing, but when she first has that first big appearance, that first big throwdown, people cheered. And I'm hearing that universally from other people saying, "Oh yeah, every time when she came on, people cheered for that." That was a good setup and a good delivery right at that moment. So I think everything's been pretty positive with her.
Yeah, exactly. That's something that I really enjoy. So,
and it's interesting because we got that great, voicemail, the great email from him about Rebirth, and then we get the voicemails which happened before that. So you see, just increased enjoyment, and I think this Rebirth is doing that. And I like the fact that you mentioned that Jeff Johns is the person who is now helming the movies. He's going to be the big guns, and there's already been talk about how they're modifying stuff for the Justice League movie since he came in. So I'm assuming some of the stuff that this energy that he brought to Rebirth, he's bringing that to the movies. So we know the Flash is one of those characters that he loves. We know that Batman and Superman are characters that he loves. So these are people who I think are going to have a good, solid portrayal in it. And Wonder Woman, we've already seen great groundwork laid for her. So I'm very comfortable with where the movie's going to now. And I'm kind of looking forward to Justice League, seeing what happens and see what kind of changes we're going to get out of this now.
Let me ask you this. He mentioned in Batman v Superman that he may own it, and he said that'll be a step forward because he doesn't own Man of Steel. Where are you at on owning it? Because I know just from our episode, we're in a little bit of a different place with Batman v Superman as far as enjoyment. Not that you didn't like it. There were things that you liked about it, but you were looking for a different film.
Right.
In kind of your comments. Is this something that you're like, I'm looking forward to purchasing this? Or are you kind of in the middle? Where are you at on the purchase part of it? Because I'm all in on the purchase, but clearly I was in a different place in the episode.
I'm all in on the purchase. And one of the main reasons I'm all in on the purchase is I want to see this extra stuff that got cut out. I want to see the full director's cut. We talked about earlier in the episode where the Daredevil, where the Ben Affleck Daredevil movie, well, I saw it in the movie, I was okay. But then you told me, hey, get the director's cut. It's a different movie. And I love that Daredevil. I love that version of that movie. I 100% said, man, this is a great movie. I'm at the same point. I'm kind of thinking I'm going to have a similar reaction with Batman versus Superman when I see that full, much longer movie and I see the stuff they took out because, we got to cut things. Those are the kind of stuff I like. Those are the kind of stuff usually universally across the board, whenever I see stuff they cut, I'm always like, why'd they cut that? Come on. And so I'm definitely all in on the purchase of this.
So the question I got to ask there then is, if it wasn't an extended edition, would you be as excited to buy it?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
I'll be honest with you. I think I want to watch it again. I'm at the point where I really do want to watch this again because, I don't know. I feel like I need to have another viewing of it, and I don't think it's out on theaters anymore.
Batman v Superman?
Yeah.
It's a good question. I don't know. I see, for me, the extended version clearly gives me a reason. I like the movie enough that I would be happy with a theatrical release. I'm to the point right now, though, where I expect extras when I buy a release anyway. Right. So, that part. But really, I do buy films based on the fact, did I really enjoy the theatrical release? So I think we're in a little bit of a different place on our excitement for getting it. You're really because of the fact that it's an extended version. Which is interesting.
I want to see that.
Yeah, that's cool. As far as the TV shows, we're kind of deliberately not going too heavy into them just because of the fact that, like him, we're huge fans of them. But he talks a little bit about the Flash Supergirl crossover episode, which you and I have not talked about on the show at all. So let's get a little geeky about that.
I loved it.
Oh,
man. I was sitting there like, oh, cool, we get to talk about it.
Yeah, and to me, one of the things that I really in particular loved about that episode is everything he's saying. You talk about legacy, you talk about characterization, you talk about hope. First of all, I adore that the show's moving. Supergirl's moving to the CW for second season because the rumor now is that there's a 4-part crossover.
Oh, cool.
All 4 shows are going to cross over.
Nice.
So I hope that's true because, man, did I like that.
Now, by 4 shows, we're talking Supergirl, Arrow, Flash, and the Legends?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, what did you think? It was iZombie.
I was wondering maybe they're going to try bringing back Constantine.
Oh, I would be cool. Well, I would be really cool with that. Yeah, no, I don't. Well, we've seen Constantine's on Legends tomorrow.
Yeah. So
he could be in it.
Well, yeah, the character's going to be,
the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't think they're bringing back the show.
Bringing back the show.
Yeah.
I want them to bring back the show.
Yeah, no, you and I are both in firm agreement there. That was a cancellation I wasn't happy with at all. But I'm glad that the TV universe is getting shored up and that we're going to see, that Supergirl joining the fold. I'm glad. I'm perfectly fine if it stays in its own timeline. I don't want to necessarily see that change or need to necessarily see that change. But man, that crossover episode, the race between the two of them, the way that they were kind of helping each other out emotionally and becoming friends, and it felt really like a comic book crossover. It's actually felt like what I love about the relationship between Barry and Hal, and Barry and Ollie, and those type of relationships are pretty important to me in comics. When you start seeing these characters together, that's the legacy piece that I think is really interesting in DC, that these characters are friends. They've been through adventures together. I like the TV universe is creating their own legacy. Supergirl, for me, has become one of my favorite shows out of the batch. For all the reasons that I love Flash, I like that it's full of hope. That there's something positive about the show. That's not to say that it doesn't tread on some dark tones and that the girl doesn't have some, bad days. But I do like that there's something immediately optimistic about her. Talk about a show that has brilliant casting. It's that show.
Oh, God, yeah. And it's funny because my mom and my sister both watched Supergirl. And, they both commented on how, for them, that the crossover episode really was that moment where they're like, this is a really good show. I like this show. And it was that, again, everything you're talking about, just that positive energy, and it just the and they're laughing because they're like, they know I was seeing different stuff than they were seeing, because I was seeing little nods and ties and the little Easter eggs, and they weren't, but they were still enjoying the episode. They still enjoy these characters, and it was. It felt very. They didn't know anything about Barry because they've never watched The Flash, but they were comfortable with how he was portrayed. They're comfortable with him being a superhero. They were comfortable with just that presence he gave on the episode. And I think that for me was something cool, because you got people who weren't watching The Flash were comfortable with this character on Supergirl.
Now, were they interested at all in watching The Flash from seeing that?
Probably not.
Okay.
Just because it's one of those things where they each have enough shows that they watch, and they're like, I'm probably not going to. But again, I probably could. They probably would watch it if Supergirl was doing a crossover on The Flash,
because they like that character. Because
they like Supergirl character so much, and they think The Flash was a cool character, and they like the actor. Because my sister knew the actor from his Glee days, so she knew him from that.
Okay. That's cool. Yeah, I really, honestly, everything about it I really enjoyed. It was a great episode. It hit all the right beats. I loved the wink and a nod to the Flash of Two Worlds episode. Comic, I should say.
Yeah.
But also the old Flash versus Superman, running contests and things. I loved having the two villains and seeing them fight. Cap Grant's reaction and Cat catching on right away that he was the Flash. And everything about it just had all the right beats to it. And it just was a very well-paced, exciting episode. I can't wait to see more from that show.
Oh, God, yeah. And I tell you, I'm so happy that these shows are getting renewed. I'm so happy that they're still there. And like we talked about how Supergirl is coming over. That, for me, was something that really said, okay, this show is now safe. Because I knew CW was going to give it more of a chance. Even if there's any slip of numbers, that's still going to be fine. Because it's still gonna they're trusting the superhero genre that they're running. You think back to little slip ups they've had with other TV shows where we're always talking about, why isn't this show with this one? Why isn't it? And it's it looks to me like they're getting their ducks in a row now. And again, as excited as I am for Rebirth, as excited as I am starting to get really for this, where maybe this movie universe is going, the TV universe has always been something that's always been just this greatness, and they're building and they're growing and it's getting stronger, and I'm very happy with my TV viewing.
Yeah, I'm the same way, and honestly I think with the ducks in the row I think they're getting the right advertising out so people know where to find these programs, and I think people are getting more confident because Arrow and Flash have been so good, Legends of Tomorrow has been so good that they're following these shows. I keep hearing some strange stuff where like people are saying that some of these seasons got kind of weaker as they went on, like the most current ones. I couldn't disagree more.
I don't understand that one, because for me, with all of the shows, I can say I felt as the series went on, they got stronger. But the reason they got stronger for me especially was because the supporting cast each season kept getting developed even more. And I think that for me is it's taking it from being solely about one person and making it an ensemble. And those are always my favorite TV shows, where it's not just you have your main character, you have your alpha, but everyone around that alpha is equally important. And you can have an episode where it's focused on somebody else. You don't need to have it just focused on Ollie. You can have a Diggle episode. It doesn't have to be a Barry. You can have, other, you can have, anybody else on that, you can have those, episodes where it's not just the person who's wearing the tights. It's their support is the main role. And I think that for me is why as this is going on, I'm enjoying it more and more.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That part for me is incredibly interesting. The fact that, with each season, the characters get developed more. It's not just about the main character, but the main character is kind of the glue that everyone connects around. I like that every so often the shows will change out or add cast members. I like the addition of Wally on The Flash, for example. I've loved the relationships going on in Arrow. I like that the villains aren't just like there for one or two episodes. The villains are there for an arc. A full season arc usually in most cases. But they're usually not the only one, and there's usually people weaving in and out of the whole thing. That's a really great, strong point of that one. Legends of Tomorrow, I think, what I love about that one is just the sheer amount of characters, and obviously the time travel is phenomenal for me. But I think they've all got an interesting, unique formula that fits their particular program and tone. And I think that part's great, too, because I like the different tones between each of them. Each program has a different flavor. And even though they're all superhero shows, I don't feel like any one of them's cookie cutter.
Hey, Sean, Jim, remember that show? This is Daryl. Remember that podcast we were supposed to do, that Batman podcast, years ago? It was like almost 5 years ago we were supposed to do that show. Well, we started doing it. It's called Gotham by Geeks, and hopefully, Sean, you can come on and one of the episodes. I know you were busy, so we never could get around to doing it, but it'd be fun to get you on to talk some Batman. And, of course, always loved the show, and always been a listener of the show since you started it, since you and Jim started this episode 1. So love it, always love the positivity of the show. And yeah, hope you can come on and join us and talk all that stuff about Batman.
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, not just Sean. Jim's in on this one too.
Yes.
Yeah, let's figure this out, man.
I actually really want to do that. So, yeah. He knows that. Daryl's a longtime friend. I mean, he is being very genuine in saying that this is something that we've been saying for a long time. He's being very honest. My schedule right now that he's referring to, I'm taking 2 classes. I'm working full time and working more hours than I ever have since we've been doing the show, and love my job. Don't get me wrong on that end, but it's taking up a lot of my time, and I'm not a teacher anymore, so I don't have summers off like I did before. None of which is a complaint. I love what I'm doing. But I'm also, as a part of my current position, I'm working in an administrative capacity, and they want me to have an administrator license. So I'm taking classes towards my principal licensure. So I'm taking a half-time college course load while I'm working as well. And it's just taking up a lot of my time. Plus, I'm trying to sell 2 houses, and, I mean, I've got all kinds of stuff going on. So it's an interesting time, so I'm spread very thin, but no, I really want to do that, and honestly, none of that is an excuse to say I don't want to do it. It's more of a yes, let's talk about it, let's make it happen. I really want to do that. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I can make it happen. So yes, count me in, and we'll make it. So we'll start communicating. We will make that happen around their schedule. But I think it's cool. I love the amount of podcasts that are out there now. I'm obviously, we've been doing this 11 years. We're on our 11th year now. We're starting our 11th year, and we're still doing it because we love it. And the one thing I've always loved about podcasts are when a new one pops up, I never consider them competition, and that's not ego. I don't mean it that way. What I mean is, I think if podcasts are good and they're done really well, each one of them, because of the fact that you bring out the personalities of the people that are doing the show, they're unique. You're going to talk about topics differently. You're going to have a different viewpoint on topics. So you can listen to somebody else's show talking about the same topic you discovered and really enjoy it because it's not your show. It's not your presentation of it. I like that. I really do like that. I like that there's something out there in podcasts for everybody. I'll have, obviously, links to their episode within another episode, their podcast, I should say, within our show notes. But I'll also put links to the Taylor Network of podcasts. I'm a huge fan of Daryl and the work that he's doing, but also all the people he's associated with. He's just really surrounded himself by some really talented podcasters, some of whom are people that I, like Daryl, I consider very close friends. Other people that I really have never met, I just know through the podcasts. So it's a nice mix of people and just great programming. And Daryl and the crew, they love comics. They love pop culture. They love the same things that we all do. And I'm a huge fan, so I want to shout them out as well. So good stuff. But we'll definitely follow up with them about doing some form of crossover episode soon.
Yes, dear kind sir, I just discovered your podcast about 2 weeks ago, and this is a must listen for me. You are so in depth with your comic books. I actually enjoy it. You talk about comic books, you watch the show or read the book. And I am going to say I'm going to try to listen to all 400 and something odd episodes, and I'm going to try to do it. I just got through 50 years of Doctor Who, so I should be able to listen to all 400 of your podcasts. Thank you. Thank you for the positive outlook on DC comic books, and thank you for being a great comic book fan. My name is Ross Stewart. I'm from Jeffersonville, Indiana, and I'm definitely will listen to you for now on as long as you are. Thank you. You have a pleasant day, sir.
You know what I think he had me at? I've watched 50 years of Doctor Who.
I know, that was awesome, man. I'm
a huge Doctor Who junkie. So the fact that he's had that passion, then he's like, I want to listen back to your entire catalog of stuff. I don't know. I admire people, or not admire people. It's more of I appreciate people that find some value in our show and actually want to listen to our back catalog. Because we pay to host those files and to keep them hosted. And the nice part about Libsyn, it's very inexpensive to keep your back catalog up and running. But I really appreciate the fact that people find some value, because I see numbers all the time going on our past shows. And, I know these are our babies. We've put a lot of work into this and really love doing this because of our connection with you, our listening audience. So thanks for that feedback, and thanks for listening to going back and listening to some of our back catalog. I hope you enjoy them. We've honestly loved every moment of the podcast, and welcome aboard. It's great. It's always great to have new listeners checking out the podcast and coming into our crazy little world. So we appreciate you.
Holy caffeine!
Jim, I want to remind everyone about our show voicemail line. We are all caught up. It's 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. We love having you part of our show. I do want to mention one thing. We did have one listener voicemail that was corrupted on Skype. We've only had that happen twice on the podcast, and I want to apologize to the listener for that. I could not tell who the listener was because it did not get to the point where it gave me any content. So if you're a listener who called into the show recently, I always air all of our voicemails. Your voicemail was not aired, not because of anything you did wrong. Skype had it corrupted, and I've done everything I can to try and recover that episode, that voicemail, and I could not get that one. So please feel free to call back in if you called into the show and I did not air it. I air all voicemails, so please understand that was the issue, not that I was ignoring your voicemail. So I do love people having that on the show. Speaking of places to find out about the show, RagingBullets.com. I always post when Jim and I get to the point where we're ready to plan and record an episode. I post what our episode content's going to be. I also try to give people a rough timeline. I let you know when we're recording, and then I do follow-ups with recording's done, now editing started, to try and give you a time release, so that way you know when episodes are coming. On the show right now, we're averaging about 3 episodes a month. I'd like to get us back to 4 a month, but the schedules don't always permit that. So I want to do at least 3 quality episodes a month of the podcast. RagingBullets.com is a place to find out about our episode release dates and the content of those particular episodes. You can find us on Twitter. We are on Google+. We have a Facebook fan page. We also have a wonderful Facebook group community that we share with Infinite Comics. That Facebook group community, Jeremy and the whole crew over there just do such an amazing job. And I really want to thank those guys for just, and girls and everybody who's over there posting, actually, for just doing such an amazing job and making such a fun and exciting community. I love visiting it. And I just want to thank them for making that such a wonderful place to visit. We are sponsored this episode by DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. James, what's going on at DCBService.com?
Bundles, bundles, bundles. We got 2 really cool Rebirth bundles. Bundle number 1, 50% off, $28.31. This has your Action Comics, Aquaman, Batman, Detective, Flash, Green Arrow, Superman, and Wonder Woman. Bundle number 2, also 50% off, only $16.39. We've got Justice League. We've got Hal Jordan, Green Lantern Corps, Batgirl, Birds of Prey, Nightwing, the Hellblazer, Red Hood and the Outlaws, and the new Superman.
Over at InStockTrades.com, as always, they have their deals of the week. As I mentioned earlier, Green Lantern Godhead, new trade paperback, 50% off, $12.49. Superman Adventures, Volume 2, 50% off, $9.99. Teen Titans Go, 50% off, only $6.49. I want to thank InStockTrades.com and DCBService.com for continuing to support our show. I do want to remind everyone that DCBService.com is also a digital partner. Whether you're doing My Digital Comics or Comixology, link those accounts and shop through their portal. They earn credit for those purchases, so you're helping out our show sponsor, but you also earn 5% of your purchases towards your DCB service order. So please make sure to link those accounts and start earning credits from DCBService.com. Jim, our next episode, we are heading into Rebirth. So we're going to be all about Rebirth. So when we start talking about it, next episode. We'll see you then.
Bye!
On November 13th, Sean Whalen was asked to stop constantly talking about comic books. That request came from his wife. Deep down, he knew she was right, but he also knew that someday he would find someone that would talk to him. With nowhere else to go, he appeared at the home of his childhood friend Jim Segulin. Sometime earlier, Segulin's boss had requested that he shut up about his comic books and never speak of them again. Can 2 grown men put out a DC Comics podcast without driving each other crazy? It's Raging Bullets, the DC Comics fan podcast. With Sean Whalen as Dr. Norge, and Jim Segulin as the Sensei of the Whatnot and the Duke of You Know. It's a spoiler podcast, so they will go in depth into the plot line, story twists, and whatnot of the comics they are reviewing. So if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you may better enjoy the show.